Early in the morning, there was a crush of cars on the highway. One of the drivers looked out to see what was happening. Looking into the side mirror of the car, he saw a young guy. The young man walked along the cars with a sword in his hands. When the boy approached the man, he found out if there was an accident ahead. Without answering, the young man jumped onto the roof of the car. Looking up, he saw what was happening ahead. The red glow began to occupy the entire sky. People began to get out of the car. The young man stood in front of the opening gates. People fled from the disaster. The guy pushed the sword aside. Then he put his sword forward. From the red glow, monsters that looked like dogs appeared. In a moment, all the small monsters were defeated. A group of people moved into the heart of the disaster. Some people got out of their cars to see what was happening ahead, blocking the raiders' path. The guys didn't understand why there were no monsters, because the gates had opened. The boys were surprised. A huge dragon emerged from the gate. A huge dragon paw crushed a nearby car. The name of this monster was Drake, and when people saw this monster, they were dumbfounded. In horror, people began to turn back. A ball of fire began to appear from the monster's mouth. The young man jumped up to attack. The lightning attack killed the dragon. The dragon's corpse caught fire and destroyed all nearby vehicles. The raider squad was in complete shock. They wanted to know who destroyed the dragon. The young man was wearing a jacket with an embroidered golden dragon. Behind the young man, everything was destroyed. Wiping the monster's blood from his face, Sam was pleased with his work. Opposite the plump guy stood a man in black. The man gave him important advice that one word was enough to stop a person at the edge of a cliff. The man's pupil was blue and emitted a blue light. Sam looked at the man with tears in his eyes. Monsters began to appear in the world, and people were divided into raiders and everyone else. Early in the morning at the Raiders Bureau, the girls at the reception invited Sam to go to the right office. The young man was very worried. When he entered the office, he was met by a doctor. The girls said that since this was not Sam's first time with her, she saw no point in explaining to him how the procedures were carried out. She also clarified that next year the young man must join the army, and he will not be able to refuse the Raider test. The doctor was pleased with his answer. Sam tensed when the girl mentioned a referral to a psychologist. The guy refused, he just wanted to take the test and go home. Having sat down in a special chamber, the lid covered the guy. After completing the testing, the doctor reported that the result had not changed. All awakened ones have an aura value that starts at 100 and then slowly increases. The main character's value has not changed since he found out that he is awakened and was 103. Sam was upset that even after training he could not raise his aura level. The young man lost all hope of becoming a raider. After the test, the doctor asked me to sign a couple of papers. Sam immediately complied with her request. Having thanked her, he left the office. Day quickly turned to evening. Our hero just opened the door of his house. When he entered the room, he took off his shoes, and there was chaos all around. The guy decided that today was a great day for gaming, but when he opened his laptop, he was surprised. The screen showed a notification that Sam's rights had been verified, and he could move into the Transcendental Network. Without thinking, he clicked on the transition button. A guy appeared where there were different windows, with a board of participants, hints, and special participants. Sam hovered over the members' board. Messages from players began to fly quickly. The young man read every message, and the participants actively communicated. Sam made fun of the people who wrote the messages. He thought the user had 8th grader syndrome. Considering himself a reasonable person, the guy decided to help the user so that they could return to reality. The young man tried very hard to help the guys, so to speak. Having finished his business, the hero was satisfied and closed the tab. Then he decided to watch the news. When he noticed the news about Duke, there were strange emotions on the guy's face. The article described how Raider Duke had gone from gold to platinum and single-handedly tracked down the monster. Duke had his fans who praised him in the comments. Sam's mood worsened even more than hers, and her body began to tremble. The guy clenched his fist and couldn't believe it. He thought it was a joke. During his school days, Duke bullied our hero. The young man was furious that his enemy had reached platinum. I went up to the stand with the tasks and removed one of the stickers. The young man was infuriated by this whole situation. He squeezed the sticker in anger. I sat down at the table again and opened the laptop again. Sam thought he was a loser because he dropped out of school to become a raider. But now he's a keyboard warrior. An armchair critic who can't pass a proficiency test. The participation rights window has reappeared. The young man did not understand why the site had opened again and began to read comments asking him to be polite. There were a lot of responses to Sam's post. With a smile on his face, the young man came to the conclusion that the commentator was completely crazy. One of the participants wrote that he would not spare any money to look at the boor who writes all this nonsense. Sam chuckled. He didn't notice that a rift was starting to appear behind him. The guy was very self-confident, At that time, the rift became bigger. Hearing a voice behind him, the young man became frightened and turned around. There was an evil grin on the girl's face. The voice came from the portal. Sam was very scared. The portal was open to another dimension. The girl was hanging in the air. The girl landed on the water, where pink vibrations emanated from every step. She was curious about the type of young man who insulted others online. The young lady left her portal. Sam recoiled in fear. The roots of the tree emerged from the portal. They enveloped the boy's body. The lady didn't like that the guy was yelling, which she showed with her appearance. The roots began to squeeze the young man's body more tightly. The girl emphasized that he was very weak. After a couple of minutes, the young man began to beg for mercy. Turning the young man's body over, the lady addressed him. Sam began to say that if they let him go, he would tell everything. The girl immediately let him go. Sam landed face down on the floor, covering his nose. The young man asked who the girl was, to which she replied that her name was Molly and that she was a network user. The girl reproached him for lying about being a raider. Sam began to justify himself by saying that it was temporary. The girl listened attentively. Sam began to explain that in this world there are ordinary people and raiders who have an aura. Usually they are the ones who hunt monsters. The young man demonstrated his ability. The guy tried his best. The girl was extremely disappointed. The guy didn't understand the girl's change of mood. The girl hoped it was a joke. The laundry began to flutter around the room. Molly activated his power. Sam was extremely surprised by such strength. The girl gave off a terrible aura. Molly turned to the guy. There was a pink glow around her. Sam began to beg him not to kill. They started knocking on the door of the room, asking if everything was okay with the owner. The young man reported that he was fine. Sam looked at the girl. Molly was disappointed that she spent her currency on a loser like our protagonist. A couple of minutes later, the girl was already on fire and wanted to know how Sam got into the Transcendental Network. The guy explained that a message had appeared on the laptop, but when he noticed that the girl did not understand what was being discussed, he decided to explain it to her. Approaching the equipment, she began to examine it. There were stickers hanging above the laptop. Noticing the papers, the girl asked the young man to tell her about himself. Sam began to justify himself by saying that there was nothing interesting in his life. He had just gone through a lot of trouble. Listening to him, the girl sat down in a chair. Molly noticed that the guy's house was a real pigsty. Bowing his head, the young man said that he himself knew this very well. When Molly asked him if he had tried to change anything in his life, the expression in his eyes changed. The lady was interested to hear the answer to the question. Opening his mouth, the hero was unable to answer anything, because her words were too cruel, but they did not hurt him. After some time, he began to tell her about how he became an orphan at an early age, and was adopted by his current parents. That at school he realized that he was awakened, but because of bullying he was never able to end the compulsion. How he sat at his laptop all day long. And the most important thing he told me was that his aura indicator has not changed for 6 years. After the young man finished his story, Molly said that the story was sad. Soon she stood up and announced that it was time for her to go. Entering the portal, the lady told the young man that if he wrote nasty things again, she would come and kill him and asked him to write an apology. The girl began to enter the portal when she remembered something. Molly said that the world is cruel and unfair and asked to go outside and start doing something. The young man was surprised by her support. Sam asked if they could meet her. With a smile on her face, the girl replied that they would definitely meet again. The guy started to get up, picking up the pedal that was left over from the guest. The young man decided to face his fears. Sam attached the pedal to his board where the stickers were stuck. The young man immediately sat down at his laptop and began writing an apology. The guy's mood was peaceful. Sam was absorbed in work. Enough time had passed since he met Molly, and Sam had become a part of his life. There was flame around the man. It was the Dark Lion Kyle, one of the members of the network. Kyle was born to a noble family and a slave. After his mother was killed by a noble, Kyle used his sword skills to become a mercenary, after which he exterminated all the nobles. The man posted a new photo online with the description that his son turned 2 years old. The young man takes out a sword. It was Mark, a netizen. Mark was one of the best sword masters. Mark and Sam started corresponding. The guy was like an older brother to our hero. Sam's sides have been a little sore lately. Sam gave Mark some advice on how to attract the attention of the girl he liked. One of the pieces of advice was for Mark to call the girl an angel. And the moment the girl smiles, the guy should say something about the smile. The advice he gave made Sam burn. The hero was glad that he was able to help his friend. But when Mark promises to visit the young man, Sam's face changes. Communicating with Transcendence, the guy noticed one common feature: efficiency. The guy decided to read a post online, thinking about how the participants always keep their promises. Sam believed that, unlike all the other participants, he was just a slacker. Drops of tears fell on the boy's hands. There was chaos all around the young man. Opening the refrigerator, the young man took a bottle. Having opened it, the young man began to drink. Then he fell onto the bed. With tears in his eyes, the young man did not understand why life gave him an aura. The hero dreamed of becoming a raider since childhood. Sam wanted to show everyone that he was not a loser. But no matter how hard the young man tried, he got stuck at the 103 mark. Over the course of 6 years, the young man had let himself go. He can't even get out of bed to change himself. Sitting down at the laptop again, the young man began to write a post. While drinking, he continued to write. Once finished, he pressed send using the key on his laptop. Having closed the laptop, the guy lay down on the table. Soon, the boy fell asleep. After some time, the guy woke up and opened the laptop again. The realization that the guy posted a strange message while drunk. Taking the computer mouse in his hands, the young man decided to look at the post. He reads carefully. When he got to the comments, he was surprised. The young man became embarrassed after reading it. A man in black clothes entered the room through the portal. Sam didn't notice that there was anyone in the room besides him. When the man spoke, the young man froze in a daze. The hero did not understand who was standing behind him. Sam noticed that the stranger's voice was somehow sharp, like sharpened metal. The stranger put his hand to his back, and blue smoke came from his palm. These actions made the guy scream in pain. The veins on his face bulged. And the stranger, as if reading, said that Sam had weak willpower, a damned constitution that corroded the mind and body. Tears began to roll down the hero's face. His enemy from school appeared in front of the boy. The man in the mask thought. The young man felt the grip of energy weaken and turned around. He clenched his fists, and the veins on his arm also bulged. The stranger came to the conclusion that the young man had not yet given up. Removing his hand, the young man leaned forward. The man in black transported the guy to a place where there was only sky. The young man did not understand where he was. The stranger said that he was the best demon hunter of all time. Sam looked at him with tears in his eyes. The tears welled up even more when the hunter said that he did not consider the young man a weakling. There was a dark aura around the hunter. The young man noticed that the power of the man in front of him was beyond reason. The hunter advised collecting network currency to gain access to the hint board, where he will leave messages for the hero. Sam leaned forward to stop the hunter, but moments later, he was already kissing the floor of his own room with his face. At first, the young man thought it was a dream, but the scratch on his hand made itself felt. Even though it hurt, he was surprised that all this happened to him seriously, in real life, and not in a dream. Sam suddenly remembered the hunter's words, that he did not consider him a weakling. The young man rose from the floor. The hero realized that he suddenly felt at ease. This lightness made the young man decide to clean up the apartment. The guy finished and arched his back slightly to stretch it. He looked at his hands. The young man came to the conclusion that there was only one piece of trash left in the room, and that was himself. So he decided to take up sports and put on a tracksuit. With a sad expression on his face, the young man reached for the door handle. Telling himself that he was not a coward, the young man opened the door, letting light into the apartment. But his journey ended in a cafe eating chicken legs. The guy couldn't believe he was so hungry after a 10-minute run. Sweat came out and ran down his face, and the guy realized that this couldn't be done. So, after leaving the cafe, he decided to go for a run again. Having reached the pole, the young man stopped to take a break. Looking at the pole, he noticed a leaflet for a sports club. Without thinking twice, he went there. Going inside, he asked if there was anyone in the building. The guy was a little shocked by what he saw. The young man noticed a man who was working out with a barbell. His body was very pumped up. Sam secretly admired him. The guy was approached while he was staring at the man exercising. The man from the flyer asked with a smile on his face if Sam had come for training. After shaking hands, the man introduced himself. His name was Steve. And Sam, in turn, also introduced himself. Steve reported that he immediately understood from the smell why the young man had passed by, which slightly tensed him. The man with a straight face said that the boy had eaten chicken, thus slightly embarrassing him. The man said that he didn't like Sam's approach of going to a cafe and eating after training, for which the young man apologized. Taking the hero by the hand, Steve said that first they needed to warm up. The man looked at him questioningly. Feeling the young man, Steve came to the conclusion that the young man had previously been involved in sports. Sam confirmed his suspicions. After pushing the guy, the man said that since the young man had the basics, he needed to work hard on his body. Sam found the treadmill exercise difficult. Steve stood nearby and asked the young man if it was hard, to which he replied that he should take a break. Steve raised his voice, saying that if he fell, he got up, and if he got up, he fell. The young man was already drenched in sweat. It was very difficult for him. Overcoming himself, the guy began to run with renewed vigor. Steve was pleased that the young man continued and said encouraging words about how even if he felt like he was on the verge of death, he should still stop. As he got off the exercise machine, the young man was shaking all over. The man Sam met when he entered the hall came up to say goodbye, saying that he would meet tomorrow. The woman said that Sam was a cool guy. The tired guy thanked him. After coming home and taking a shower, the guy decided to do what the best demon hunter told him to do. Having opened the network, the guy moved the mouse cursor over the hint board. But when he went to this tab, the system reported that access was denied because there was not enough currency. The young man wondered how he could get this very currency. The system reported that Sam received a quest to lose weight to 100 kilograms and below. The guy was very taken aback by the quest task. Afterwards, the hero began to actively engage in order to achieve the goal. On the treadmill, he made the decision to lose 100 kilograms, no matter what it took. Steve supported the young man, saying that even if he died, he should still continue running. In the bathroom, the guy began to examine his face. The progress was obvious. The young man was able to lose some excess weight. Raising his hand up and clenching his fist, he began to encourage himself through the mirror. Sam was jogging along the embankment. The girl, who was also jogging in the other direction, looked at the young man who was saying that he would do intensive training. She had seen Sam before. When they first met, the guy, in her opinion, looked like a huge pig. After jogging, the guy switched to the handbrake. When he pulled himself up, you could see that his body began to become covered in muscles. While the guy was doing pull-ups, he shouted encouraging phrases to himself that he wouldn't be able to become stronger until he did it himself, that he wasn't a coward. The girl noticed that the young man was serious. When Sam took a break to drink some water, she decided to go to him. Smiling, the young woman decided to ask if the guy always trained so hard. She continued the conversation, to which the young man responded in monosyllables. Sam told the captive that it was time for him to go. The girl was angry with herself, not understanding why she spoke to him. The guy smelled that the girl stank, in his opinion, of a blue mark raider. The physical capabilities of raiders are much superior to those of ordinary people, even if we are talking about low-ranking raiders. The raiders received huge rewards, which they received for risking their lives, created a sense of privilege. Sam knew this because he was an intern. The young man remembered that one of the raiders beat up the intern, telling him to take his suitcases and go home. The memory slightly spoiled the guy's mood. The girl who had been talking to him earlier began to catch up with Sam. Soon she overtook him, and the young man noticed her. Sticking out her tongue and giving a thumbs down, the lady called the guy fat. Her behavior slightly angered the young man. Upon entering the house, the guy immediately went to his laptop to check who had posted what online. Noticing the post from Molly, the guy immediately remembered their agreement to meet. The guys began to drive away thoughts about the girl because they were on different levels. After clicking on the quest check, the guy began to pray that everything would work out. The system reported that Sam's weight was 100 kilograms and 2 grams. The guy jumped off his chair in indignation. Sam decided to go to the toilet to lose those 2 grams. Having returned and checked the result, the system reported that the weight was 100 kilograms and 5 grams. Taking a handkerchief, the young man decided to get rid of the water. The system congratulated the guy on completing the quest, and as a reward, the guy received 100 coins of the network currency. The guy was very happy about this. With a smile on his face, he used the currency. Opening the hint board panel, the guy began to read the topics. The system reported that 100 coins were required to watch the recording, and 200 coins to create it. The guy was interested in reading all of this. The guy blossomed when he noticed the post about Molly. A window opened with a message for Sam from the best demon hunter of all time. There was a dark aura around the boy as he looked at his hands. While reading, he tried to understand every word. Reading the line about how the boy would become stronger if he mastered the right techniques, the young man began to cry. The best demon hunter passed on to the boy the highest divine art he had created, and from this, the boy rose up. The guy knelt down near the chair and bowed. The name of the divine art was Great Mercy. The guy stood up and leaned his elbows on the table. With tears in his eyes, the boy realized that he perceived the aura as an instrument of control and power. But the hunter treats the aura as something living. The guy folded his hands into a circle and began to pump up his aura. Leaned back when nothing worked. The guy was ready to make this decision hundreds of times. He knew it would help him change, so he sat down normally and continued training. The aura was collected from the entire body into the hands. Concentrating, the young man imagined himself threading a thread through the eye of a needle. The aura from the legs rose higher. The aura flows through the body like water, spreading everywhere, as if taking root. The guy decided to focus on the obstacles that the aura was trying to pass through. The aura began to emanate from the boy with greater force. Looking at his fists, the guy realized that he had succeeded. He was very happy about it. I fell off the bench from such joy. The smile never left the young man's face. Raising his fist up, he promised himself to become stronger. Sam went to a private raider training academy. A group of boys trained under the supervision of a coach. One of the students told the man that someone had come to see him. The coach didn't understand who could visit him. Sam greeted Coach Tim with a smile on his face. The man was surprised when he saw the young man. Tim shed a tear and was glad that even without becoming a raider, Sam was able to change. In a fit of emotion, the man hugged him. The young man did not know how he reacted. Sam was quick to explain the reason for his visit, which was his aura, which he had demonstrated to Tim. The man was very surprised to see the guy's aura. Sam asked him to take a look at her once. Turning around, the coach announced that he was leaving and asked them to continue training on their own. Tim suggested measuring the hero's aura first. With his eyes closed, Sam inquired about the result. But instead of the meaning he was offered to see for himself, the young man hesitantly opened the gas. The aura value was 1034. The guy was surprised by the result. He did not expect such progress. He couldn't believe it, because he had only been training the techniques for a month. But the value of the aura had grown so much. The coach's question about how he managed to do it brought the guy out of his thoughts. After hearing the answer, the man smiled and said that it was amazing and suggested a duel. The hero was confronted by a boy who liked to show off, and he needed to be taught a lesson. Tim was confident that Sam could easily defeat him. Without hesitation, the guy agreed. A lot of spectators gathered for the fight. The guy was surprised that he was put in a duel with Sam. Having learned that our hero had about 1,000 aura, he looked at him. For Sam, it was another quest that would reward him with 1,000 network coins. The enemy introduced himself. His name was Blake, and Sam in turn also gave his name. The guys got into fighting stances. It was hand-to-hand combat without weapons. Blake struck the first blow, gathering his aura into a fist. Sam parried the blow easily. He then quickly dodged to the side to strike, leaving his opponent confused. Sam punched the guy in the face. A vibration from the blow passed through his hand. Blake chuckled. He was surprised that the enemy was not wounded. Sam stepped back, while the guy opposite him began to stretch his arm. Blake quickly rushed towards the hero to strike. The opponent decided to strike with a kick where he had accumulated aura, but Sam blocked it. The force of the blow sent the young man flying into the wall of the arena. Taking his hands away from his face, there was not a scratch on the young man. Blake decided to deliver the finishing blow with the same foot in which he was accumulating aura, but he was sure that this was the end for his opponent. The hero intercepted his leg. This action slightly frightened Blake. Using his strength and aura, Sam was able to knock the guy down on his shoulder blades. Blake's face met the floor. Sam grabbed his opponent by the shirt. Without losing hope, the young man wanted to kick again, but he missed, because Sam was already standing right in front of him, and the blow hit empty air. The audience tried not to laugh, but it was difficult. Blake quickly stood up while his opponent had already taken a stance. He put all the rage he had felt from the shame he had just experienced into the follow-up blow. But Sam was able to block the blow again. The young man gathered aura into his fist to strike. The blow landed on Blake's chin. The opponent lost his balance and fell again. Sam took a pose to finish the fight. Blake tried to get out, but to no avail. When our hero twisted his arm, the enemy experienced a fight. Blake was furious. Gathering a huge amount of aura in his hand, the guy was about to strike. The blow landed right on Sam's face. The coach rushed to stop his student because he had collected too much aura to strike. Exhaling, Sam squeezed his hand harder, breaking it. After the fight, the young man happily ran around for training. While jogging, he said that one shouldn't be too happy. Blake was defeated because he didn't train properly and he lacked motivation. Sam's victory in the sparring was the result of his hard training. Tears of joy came to my eyes. The guy came to the gym for training, where he was lifting weights. Having finished the exercises, the guy returned the equipment to its place. He sat up and wiped the sweat from his face. At the entrance, he noticed a couple of schoolchildren staring at him. They were surprised to see the young man. Sam noticed a leaflet in their hands. The leaflet had a photo before and after a workout in the gym, advertising the club. Remembering something, the young man began to think. Afterwards, he began posing for schoolchildren, as if by accident. One of the guys turned to Sam, "Uncle." This appeal quickly brought the young man down to earth. The boy asked if it was true that Sam had changed in just 3 months, to which he received a satisfactory answer. The guy was fired up when he realized that he could do it too. With a sly smile on his face, the guy said that they had approached the wrong person. When the boys felt the presence of a man behind them, they tensed up. They turned around with fear on their faces. Steve put his arm around her shoulders and introduced himself. With a smile on his face, the man led them into his office for a conversation. Sam watched as some sounds came from the office. When everyone returned, the guys' souls left their bodies, and Steve, with a smile on his face, said that the guys wanted to become like Sam. Then Steve continued the dialogue with Sam about how they would have the same training as the hero. Steve reported that the students signed a contract that they could not refuse to visit evil for some time. The guy wished them good luck. Having remembered something, the guy took out his phone, he went online. He had long ago started visiting her site from his phone. After the first training session, the school children fell off their feet from fatigue and lack of habit. The boys were on edge when they noticed Sam training. One of the boys did not understand what their older friend was doing. Sam began to emit a blue glow, which led the guys to the conclusion that he was a raider. One of the guys was glad that Sam was his older friend. The other one continued to watch the guy training. Sam was bothered by the fact that people in the hall had started looking at him strangely lately. The teenager in glasses reverently repeated all the exercises after our hero, and this was what made the guy nervous. Sam felt awkward with the way they were staring at him. The schoolboy couldn't take his eyes off his idol. Having plucked up his courage, he nevertheless approached, which surprised Sam. The boy said that he felt something while looking at the guy. This really stressed the hero out. With a sly expression on his face, the young man stated that he knew who Sam was, which greatly surprised him. When he was told that this was not something to hide, the young man said that he was not hiding anything. The boy's answer surprised the young man even more. The kid was glad that his assumptions turned out to be correct. Sam explains that he is not quite a raider yet and is going to take the exam. The young man said that he was jealous and that he too was going to become a raider. Sam suddenly realized something, so he decided to clarify. James confirmed his suspicions that he too was awakened and demonstrated his power. The guys started a conversation, where James told them that his parents think that becoming a raider is very dangerous. There are many late bloomers among raiders, and to become a true raider you need not only aura, but time and effort. The schoolboy said that he would definitely become a raider. Sam became interested in why. The boys looked at each other because the answer was obvious. Raider, the coolest profession, ranked first in a study of career aspirations among elementary and middle school students. Sam wondered if the younger one could control the aura, to which he received a positive answer. The hero asked to show. The young man was a little confused. James sat down on the bench to show the macaw, which was light blue. When Sam asked who trained him, James replied that he watched lectures by Raider Duke. Hearing the name of the enemy, the guy became slightly irritated. He praised the younger one and wished him to continue in the same spirit. Sam hoped they would meet at the top. James smiled. He hoped so too. Soon the schoolboy returned to his friend, and Sam watched them from the side. The guy felt very good. These feelings were refreshing. Sam slapped himself on the cheeks to cheer himself up. Arriving home, the young man immediately took a shower and sat down at his laptop. Sam admired the title. He asked to wait a little. The Best Demon Hunter. The hint board was a great help to the boy in mastering new skills. Sam was glad that everything was as usual online. Afterwards, the guy decided to look at the exam materials, where he learned that the advanced part of the test would be random this time. Sam continued reading the news columns about the exam. Every year, all the tests are always different, and no one knows what to expect. Even if you pass the written test, the aura and combat skills assessment, you can often fail the last stage, the advanced test. Last year, there were debates, and Sam did not understand how they could help the raiders. An advertisement for a problem book for preparing for an advanced test appeared on the screen. Leaning back in his chair, the guy couldn't understand how anyone could buy this advertising. A minute later, the guy calls the number from the advertisement to buy this problem book. After finishing the conversation, Sam hoped that this would be enough. Having taken the pose of a typical villain from a TV series or movie, the guy was sure that soon the whole world would know about him. The next day, the guy trained on the horizontal bars, doing turns. After finishing his training, the guy sank to the ground when he smelled something. While looking for the source of the smell, the guy noticed a girl running not far from him. The girl also noticed him and decided to approach. When she came up and spoke, Sam hid his face with his hand. He didn't like the girl. The lady reported that the guy had lost so much weight that she could hardly recognize him, to which the young man asked her to leave. The girl apologized for being rude last time. Then, putting her hand to her chest, she said her name, Mary. Sam also introduced himself. He wasn't particularly interested in this dialogue. Mary asked the guy if he was a raider, to which he replied that he was going to take an exam. With a smile on her face, the girl wished him luck, and said that she would also be there, coming to support the newcomer from her company. With a smirk on his face, the guy told her that he was looking forward to meeting her. Sam proposed a bet to her. The girl did not understand what he was talking about. The guy explained that he and the newcomer from Mary's team were arguing about who would win. As a reward, the young man offered a wish that the loser would fulfill. Mary added that the loser cannot refuse. Turning around to leave, the girl pointed the big guy down. She was irritated. Sam shared her mood, and when she left, he ran his finger along her neck, hinting that the girl was finished. Early in the morning, the guy was very worried before the exam. Many elderly people came to the exam. Among those who surrendered was Blake, who once fought with our hero. The guy couldn't fail, so he shrugged his shoulders and headed to the center with his head held high. The first part of the exam was written. Sam heard that the difficulty of the written test has increased this year. The young man thought the test looked salty, and most of the questions were tricky. However, hard work is worth the blood and sweat. The boy marked answer after answer on the answer sheet. Having finished, the guy arched back slightly to stretch his back. When Sam stretched his back, he looked at the others and noticed that they were having a hard time doing all this. The normal guy sat down and thought about the fact that if the first part was so difficult, what awaited them in the advanced test. When the exam time came, the instructor said that if anyone moved from that moment on, they would be immediately disqualified. With his hands behind his head, Sam noticed that his neighbor was still taking his exam. A purple lightning bolt wrapped around the man's neck. This lightning was the aura of the instructor, who warned that movement was prohibited. The inspector noted that discipline is everything for the raiders, because they put their lives on the line. The man continued to talk about how if anything goes wrong, the slightest mistake, and the entire team is at risk. He reminded them that rules are made to be followed. Afterwards, he smiled and wished everyone good luck. While everyone was leaving the auditorium, our hero hesitated. Sam exhaled heavily, but he was sure he had managed it. While the audience was becoming less crowded, the hero decided to train his aura. The two remaining guys started pointing at Sam, indicating that he was controlling the aura. The guy needed to clear his mind, but thoughts about the army kept creeping into his head. These images did not give the guy peace, so he shook his head to drive them away. The aura began to spread throughout the body, from the heart area. The aura control brought back many memories of how he was humiliated at school. A memory of when Sam first told his parent that he wanted to be a raider, about how his parents supported him and believed in him. The guy was scared by the instructor, who came to find out what Sam was doing. The inspector reproached him for the need to study in a safe place. This is the basis. The young man apologized. The man gently touched the boy's shoulder. He understood that there were times when he had no choice. The guy raised his head and was delighted. It seemed to him that the instructor had participated in a huge number of dangerous battles. The man confirmed this. He really was a participant in many battles. The inspector continued to enlighten the young man that in the Book of Monsters, there is an unidentified creature called the Black Castle. At the first meeting with it, the raiders were unable to obtain enough information to identify the monster. Since then, no one has met this castle again. They were interrupted by a female assistant who announced that the second part of the exam would soon begin. While talking, the man forgot that he was supposed to conduct the second part of the exam. At parting, the instructor told the young man that the second stage would soon begin, and that he should go to the second floor. The man smiled and wished Sam good luck. Responding to his elder's smile, he thanked him. A few minutes later, the guy was already there. One of the assistants asked to wait. The young man stood in line. Everyone in front began to admire. Our hero did not understand why. When two guys passed by, the young man asked what was going on there. The stranger reported that the aura of the person who had just taken the measurement was over 30,000. A nice girl came out of the office. Sam was greatly impressed by the importance of the man. The line gradually moved slowly, while the guy was in a state of shock. Sam became curious about who this raider was when the guy standing in front said that the girl's name was Vanessa. The line became more lively when the conversation turned to the beauty Vanessa. The hero immediately remembered the newcomer from Mary's company, and a slight irritation began to appear in his mood. Sam asked if there were those who had already failed the test. When the interlocutor in front said that no one could fail the test, because everyone had an aura of 5,000 or more. The guy was a little worried because the last value of his aura was 5,100. The young man was the last one to take the test. The doctor asked the young man to take a seat to conduct a diagnosis. Sam was afraid to look at the measurement screen. He was afraid of screwing up. The guy's aura value was 7,180. When the doctor told the boy this news, the young man's eyes widened. Sam jumped up suddenly. Tears of joy came to the boy's eyes. Sam began to bow and thank his online friends, which greatly surprised everyone present. The young man thanked the doctor, wishing him a year full of good luck. With his hands raised, the guy left the office, happy as a child. Taking out his phone, he began to correspond with James, inviting him to eat meat. There were a lot of people on the street. The city lived a quiet life. Sam sat humming a song while waiting for James. The young man was sitting chewing on a straw when he noticed someone at the window. It was Mary with a few boys. Noticing those, the young man became slightly angry. He was angry that Mary was living languidly. knowing that she had such a strong trump card up her sleeve. Everyone in the company had swords that were meant to fight monsters. Lost in thought, the young man did not notice that someone was reaching out to him. James's sharp cry and movement startled Sam. James's friend Robin came with him, and the guys immediately asked how the exam went. Having said that everything was as easy as pie and asked what they would eat, the guys chose pork. Having placed the order, the guys began to fry the meat. The young man said that he had realized something and decided to live life to the fullest, and told them to eat until their stomachs burst. The boy suggested that the elder become a manager in a meat restaurant, because he cooks meat very well. James started making fun of Sam, who asked Rodan to hit his friend harder, pointing the tongs at the schoolboy, saying that he needed to be taught a lesson. Mary and her company came into the restaurant and were cheerfully discussing something. Sam was slightly angry when the schoolboy was surprised. The girl noticed Sam, said hello, and said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Mary introduced Sam to Vanessa. She told about the argument with the young man. When the girl introduced herself, the atmosphere around her changed. When the company was about to leave, the hero stopped Mary. The guy was slightly upset, clenching his fist. In the evening after the cafe, the guys went home when James asked who those girls were. Sam hugged the guys and suggested going to karaoke. Lightning flashed behind the boys. Our hero felt something was wrong. When Sam turned around, he noticed that the gates had started to open. The school children did not understand what was happening. The guy's mood changed and became serious. He asked the younger ones to quickly leave there. The guys didn't understand what was happening, but the young man began to take his friends away. Sam had a bad feeling about this. He felt the same when the gates opened in his room. When the hero said one word, gate, James did not understand. Sam was very scared. It was evident on his face. The rift grew larger and larger. Soon the boys noticed that a creature began to emerge from the gate. A huge dragon emerged from the gate. It was Sinkus. The guy was stunned by what he saw. People started running away from the scene. Some stumbled and fell. No matter how much the guy wanted to leave, he couldn't move. Mary ordered everyone to leave the area because the Iron Horse Raider group had arrived. The girl ordered Vanessa to call the rescue service. The Iron Horse Association, although they are not one of the big three, is an elite raider elite company. The Union began to act and began to attack Sinkus. Mary stabbed with her sword. During the impact, she looked at the portal and was slightly surprised. More monsters began to emerge from the gate. They were monsters that looked like stone dogs, and their name was Jorg. The monsters ran past the girl. Turning around to attack, the girl ordered the dogs to be blocked. One of the monsters attacked a civilian. Sam stood still while people suffered, unable to help them, unable to move. He wanted to come over and help. The guy had trained hard for this. James began to defend himself from the Jorgs with an ordinary stick. Having dealt with one, another monster immediately began to attack the young man. The young man covered his face with his stick and his hands, while James, a boy who had never been properly trained, fought bravely against the monster. Once the stick got stuck in the monster's mouth, the schoolboy kicked it away. One monster after another attacked the schoolboy, and he heroically repelled the blow. But one of the dogs grabbed James by the shoulder. The young man fell. His hand was bleeding. The monster bit it off. Only after this event was Sam able to move to help his younger comrade. The monster grabbed the boy's hand and looked at the approaching hero. The aura began to appear. It was clearly visible. As the young man gathered aura into his fist to strike, the spear flew past him. Sam was surprised when the spear pierced the monster. The guy from the association asked if everything was okay with the guy. Sam confirmed that everything was okay with him, but said that there was a victim. James grew paler and paler. The raider came to help with a bandage. Sam said he could handle it himself. The schoolboy experienced excruciating pain from the bandage. Sam used his aura power to stop the bleeding. The monsters decided to approach the guys from behind. Mary activated the power of Aru and summoned all the monsters to her. The monsters began to move towards the blue glow. One of the guys asked about the girl's condition, to which she began talking about a monster. Mary knew a way to kill the monster quickly, but to do this you need to get to the head. The monster noticed movement in his direction. The dragon noticed that help had arrived, and all his attention switched to them. The Union began to attack the monster. Mary began to climb higher to reach her goal. Having gathered aura into a sword, the girl jumped on the monster. The girl raised her sword to attack. While striking, Mary wished him death. The monster fell to the ground dead. The girl fell near the monster, breathing heavily. Sam noticed that the gates began to close. It seemed to him that there was something inside, so he took a closer look. One of the monsters was watching the guy closely. Luke realized that the monster was looking at him. It was scary. The guy's face was frozen in fear from the monster's intense gaze. James started coughing. Noticing the younger's movement, Sam's attention switched to him. The young man thanked the schoolboy for saving him. James smiled. Even though he wasn't a full-fledged raider, it was the least he could do. An ambulance was already approaching the boys. Sam told the guy that he was right in everything. The city began rebuilding permits last night. While training, the guy thought that the battle with the monsters was not as he imagined. If Mary and all those people who accidentally ended up next to them, he could die. Evening fell upon the city. Sam trained with a barbell. Steve came up and said that it was time for the young man to go home. Having fixed the barbell, the guy wiped away the sweat, lost in thought, and didn't notice that it was already so late. The man offered the guy a drink, and when they were already sitting in the establishment, he said that he regretted how everything turned out with James. The young man began the dialogue by saying that he was awakened, to which Siv said that he was sure that the young man would pass the exam. Sam continued to talk about how when he first encountered the monster, his body went numb. The young man drank the contents of the glass. After putting down the empty glass, the hero continued talking about how James was wounded because of him. There was sadness on his face. Sam did not understand how he could become a raider if he could not protect the younger one. Steve looked at him with a sad smile. The man said that before the opening of the hall, he was a professional boxer. The young man imagined what Steve looked like in his youth. He was sure that his opponents were carried out of the ring. The man smiled, remembering the old days. A series of victories followed the coach in his youth, until one moment. One young man died during the match. Watching as they tried to bring the young man back to consciousness, young Steve realized that he would not be able to return to the ring. Afterwards, he asked Sam why he thought he told him this story. The young man did not understand why. Looking at Sam as he refilled his drink, Steve told him to stop feeling sorry for himself. While the stack was filling up, he continued to talk about how the young man was not going to lock himself in a room and whine about the mistakes of the past all his life. Our hero listened attentively to the teachings of his senior comrade. Steve looked at him with a fatherly gaze. When the man was already more or less drunk, he decided to ask the younger one who would win if the past him and the present him met. The young man answered that Steve from the past would win. The elder one began to deny it, saying that he didn't understand anything and demonstrated a boxing punch. After adjusting his mustache, Steve began to say that now he would not wave his fists, just like that. Patting the boy on the back, the man said that he thought Sam would make a great raider. In the blink of an eye, the young man emptied his glass of drink. His face became serious as he confirmed his senior comrade's words. Earlier, the sun illuminated the building of Master Tim's academy. In one of the rooms, Sam was training using virtual reality glasses. The guy asked the Yorgs, the same dogs that attacked James, to be his opponents. The young man gripped the sword more tightly and began to charge it with aura. A projection of the dog appeared in front of the young man. The monster immediately began to attack the guy. When the monster jumped up to grab the young man, Sam put his sword under its fangs. With one movement, he cut the dog in half. When the monster was defeated, the projection began to disappear. Holding the sword in his hands, the young man did not understand how he could not do the same on the night of the battle. Having called our hero, the coach advised him not to get distracted and not to let anger take over him. When Tim asked if they would continue, Sam briefly responded with an affirmative. For the second fight, the guy asked to put Sinkus on him. A projection of a dragon began to appear in front of the guy. When the projection was completely ready, the young man prepared for the attack. Having charged the sword with aura, the guy took a running start and began to attack. The first blow landed on the monster's leg, causing the sword to ricochet slightly. The dragon struck him with its tail, and Sam easily dodged it. Stepping back a little, the young man began to charge the sword with aura. The dragon moved forward first to attack. The young man crouched down and began to make his way between the monster's legs. Gripping the sword more comfortably, Sam charged it with more aura. He then rushed at the monster, raising his weapon to attack. In an instant, the monster was defeated. The projection began to disappear. The guy realized that the more he honed his martial arts style, the more he began to understand his way of thinking. Images of the night of the battle with the monsters, where James fought alone, appeared before his eyes. Sam could have protected the boy that night if he hadn't just stood there. A second phase Sinkus appeared in front of the hero. It was more powerful than the previous one. The monster immediately began to attack, while the young man fully activated his aura. The day of the second stage of the Raider exam turned out to be sunny. The Colosseum was chosen as the place for the exam, around which all the exam participants gathered. Arriving at the place, Sam put on a special device that was given to all participants. When it was time to choose a weapon, the guy chose a sword without thinking. The young man did not understand why the props in the training center looked so poor. The crowd perked up when they spotted the Platinum Mark Raider, Michael. Coming to the podium, the guy congratulated everyone who had passed the first stage of the exam and said that he would now tell us how the second stage would go. The participant's armor was based on sensors that counted fatal hits from the opponent as a defeat, after which, the participant's actions will be immediately limited. The task of the participants was to neutralize as many opponents as possible. Victory would go to the last one remaining on the battlefield. The assistant handed out documents, after signing which the guys could go to the exam location. Behind Michael, the gates to the Coliseum opened, a streak of light enveloping the exam participants. Everyone slowly began to enter the exam area. The exam venue was a clearing surrounded by trees. When the loudspeaker announced that there were 5 minutes left, the crowd came to life and everyone began looking for a place to hide and attack the enemy unnoticed. At the beginning of the exam, our hero was left standing alone in the clearing. The stranger turned to Sam. He didn't understand why he was still standing there. The hero explained that he had chosen the tactic of avoiding combat and decided to observe for now. It was clear to the stranger's eyes that he had decided to quickly defeat our hero. But it was not to be. Sam was the first to strike his opponent. The stranger repelled the guy's attack and said that he was in no hurry. A battle to the death ensued between the boys. Having struck, the young man suggested that our hero get to know each other better. Sam parried the enemy's blow with his sword, accumulating energy in the sword. Sam said that they should not waste their energy and time on this. The blow caused our hero's sword to fly out of his hands. But Sam didn't lose his head and grabbed the guy's face with his hand, which surprised him. Our hero accumulated the power of the aura in his fist. The loudspeaker was informed that participant number 222 was defeated. The young man fell to the ground unconscious from our hero's blow. While Sam was adjusting his cap, it was announced that he was the first to defeat the opponent, and that for this, he would receive additional points for winning the challenge. Leaving number 222, our hero went deep into the trees. The exams were observed by representatives of various raider hiring companies. Ben tensed slightly when the first person to be eliminated was a man from his company, N. Danny from S Company shared rumors that the Iron Horse unions had a talented newcomer today. Charles from Company G joined the conversation by saying that he heard that the aura value of a newbie was 30,000. Mary was proud that everyone admired the newcomer from their company so much. The girl noted that everyone was calm. Apparently each person gathered had a candidate in whom they believed. During this time, Vanessa defeated 3 opponents. For the triple murder, the girl received extra points. Sam remembered that the best demon hunter once said that the best battle using aura is submission. We need to subjugate the enemy universe to our own. The young man moved carefully through the forest to find his next victim. Sam soon came across 2 guys fighting each other, and then he noticed that fighting monsters was very different from hunting animals with weapons. 2 men were fighting each other, but one of them had a weapon, the other fought hand to hand. While they were focused on their battle, Sam attacked from behind the trees. The young man moved very quickly, leaving only a light trail from the sword. Leaving the opponents lying on top of each other, the guy ran on. Sam was being watched on camera. His person was quite interesting to the observers. The observers did not understand where our hero came from. They were surprised that the boy was able to easily deal with people from companies D and B. Looking at the screens where the exam was being broadcast, Mary was surprised. The girl jumped up from her seat in surprise, while the man next to her asked if she knew this young man, since the hero had recently defeated a man from his company. The girl was so surprised that she couldn't say anything. She didn't expect to see Sam in the second part of the exam. The young man, who looked like a high school student, was trembling slightly as he gathered aura into the wooden sword. Vanessa also gathered aura in her sword to strike her opponent. The girl made quick and precise movements, and the enemy received a blow to the stomach. After the victory, the girl moved on. Vanessa blushed in anticipation of who would be next. Turning around, the girl noticed Sam, who was about to attack from behind. Vanessa realized that she knew this guy. She remembered what it was like when the gates opened. The girl immediately noticed him, because Sam stood rooted to the spot when the crowd tried to escape from the scene. With a slight blush on her face, the girl greeted them and said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. When she reported the argument with Mary, the guy's aura began to manifest. The number that glowed red on the vest indicated that the young man had defeated 10 opponents. The girl couldn't understand whether Sam was one of those people who had good skills, but was terrified of monsters. Having taken a pose, the girl suggested starting the fight. Vanessa gathered aura in her hand and raised her hand with the sword behind her head to attack. A quick movement and the young lady struck. The guy managed to dodge and a light trace remained from the sword. The guy was slightly taken aback. The girl's aura was no joke. Sam came to that conclusion. The girl moved quickly, and the guy barely had time to watch her in order to dodge her attacks. Sam was able to fend off the attack, staggering slightly. The girl decided to make her next attack with her foot, while the enemy was still unsteady. The guy was able to parry his opponent's quick strike. Sam crouched down while Vanessa thought of her next attack. While thinking, a thought flashed through my head that the guy was losing, but still continued to attack him. Remembering the guy's attacks, the girl realized that her opponent had an advantage in skill. Removing your hand from your chin, you can see a scratch from the boy's attack. The girl reached for the elastic band to free her hair from it. The elastic band broke, and at the mere thought that someone was better than her, Vanessa began to explode with anger. The atmosphere around the girl became murderous. It was clear that she wanted to kill. Vanessa adjusted her hair and looked down at Sam as if he were the lowest of creatures. Exhaling, the girl released the inner demon that she had been so diligently holding back. From the incredible aura of his rival, the guy squeezed the sword harder. The young man did not understand how exactly Vanessa managed to awaken the thirst for blood, like a monster. Watching the girl, the guy was sure that on the day of the attack, Vanessa saw his fear of monsters. Gathering his courage, the young man stood on his side and prepared to attack. Sam gathered aura into the sword. He was serious. Vanessa smiled and said that the guy had changed since their last meeting. The aura slightly strained the guy, but he continued to gather his strength into the sword. The guys were like fire and water, an eternal confrontation. Their aura confirms this. Both opponents were ready for the main battle. Vanessa was the first to decide to attack. Looking at his opponent, the guy squatted halfway and was ready to repel the attack. The boys' swords moved so fast that only a light trail from their auras remained. Before they could injure each other, the boys were tied with ropes and fell due to loss of balance. Lying on the ground, the guy caught his breath. Sam couldn't believe that after the battle with Vanessa, he remained alive. People began to gather for the third part of the exam. This was the most difficult part of the exam, because every year this part was different. Sam sat down at his place. He understood that many raiders who showed excellent results in the first and second stages, they could fail in the last one. Sitting down at the desk, the guy noticed the supplies lying on it. Taking the sheet, the guy did not understand what it was for. The first thing that came to his mind was that the commission would check his drawing skills. The examiners announced that this year the final part of the qualifying exam is an essay, and everyone became tense after hearing this. A disgruntled whisper went through the audience. Not everyone knew how to write an essay. The examiner began to read the essay. He considered what was written to be banal. Closing his eyes, Sam began to remember the moment when he began to dream of becoming a raider. After a few minutes, the young man finally remembered how his dream began. It all started back in school. The guy started thinking about raiders from that time. At school, he defended the weak, who were humiliated by Duke. When Sam defended weak kids from a classmate, all of Duke's anger was directed at our hero. The offender always pressed on the sore spot, the fact that the young man was an orphan. Sam usually looked out the window before going to bed at the orphanage. By the time Sam came to terms with being alone, he was adopted by his current family. His parents saw their recognition in raising Sam. Adults didn't always say that they loved the boy, but he felt it. One day, the parents sat the young man down in front of them and began a conversation about the purpose for which people were born. The purpose of his parents was to raise the young man. While looking for his things, the guy noticed a strange bag in the trash can. Opening it, Sam understood why his parents started that strange conversation, because his biological mother was dead. After reading the document, the guy returned it to the trash can. When the boy entered the courses for raiders, his parents, of course, came to support him. One of his father's wishes was to live up to his name. Sam did not understand the man's instructions. The father explained that the name means peace to his family. The father wished his son to become a raider who helps people. The boy bowed in respect and gratitude for the way they raised him. Remembering all this, the guy began to assemble the picture in his head. Sam started writing about monsters that have taken over humanity. The only force that can resist them is the aura. The guy began to describe his opinion on the issues that worried him. Sam remembered meeting the demon hunter of all time. His words that the young man was not a coward. He remembered meeting Molly, who wished him to become a transcendent. About his younger friend James, whom he must protect. The guy described all these memories in his essay, because it was thanks to these people that he wanted to become a raider. A few days later, Sam came to the hospital. The young man decided to visit James. Sam brought treats for the younger one. Seeing the older one, the teenager smiled and asked if he liked novels. Opening a soda, Sam asked when James would be discharged. When the young man said that it would not be soon and that he would have to study in the ward, the older man decided to laugh at him. After the joke, the teenager decided to show off his knowledge and asked the older man if he knew the square root formula. Hearing the elder's answer, the young man laughed. Sam felt at peace when he saw the smile on James's face. After a minute of silence, Sam said that he would help the younger one stop his hand, which surprised James. Smiling, the teenager said that he would trust his elder and would prepare to become a firefighter. Sam was slightly surprised by the choice of profession, to which the young man replied that a firefighter is a very cool profession. Having patted the young man on the head, the hero said that it was time for him to go. When he was leaving, the young man asked when the elder would come again, to which Sam replied that in 2 years. James said he would visit his friend in the army, but Sam turned around and said it wasn't necessary. When he went outside, the guy was dejected. He didn't want to waste his precious youth and throw 2 years down the drain. He stood in the middle of the city and shouted that the army was the tyranny of the state. The Immortal Squad, a specialized unit made up of awakened individuals who failed the qualification test, is where our hero will soon end up. Sam remembered the coach saying the boy needed a gun. The teacher began to explain that each awakened person has his own weapon, and the military cannot provide everyone with one. I approached the weapons store and began to look at the display cases. The bell notified the cashier of the arrival of a customer. The young man looked menacingly at the cashier. From the atmosphere, the cashier realized that the young man was a conscript. The seller shared that such young men often drop in to see them, and Sam asked to show the claymores. When the seller started saying that the weapon was attractive on the outside but empty on the inside, the guy didn't understand what he was talking about at first. Cody enthusiastically announced that they sell any two-handed swords. The hero did not understand the seller's joy. The seller began to explain that the claymore is a weapon of great historical significance, along with the Japanese sword, and many who find it inconvenient to use modern weapons choose it. Sam was amazed by the stories about the variety of swords. Cody handed one of the swords to the boy. Without wasting any time, our hero immediately squeezed it in his palms. After making a couple of movements, the young man came to the conclusion that the sword was not bad. The guy grabbed the handle with one hand. The seller was glad that the buyer liked the weapon. When Sam held out his card for payment, Cody took it with a bow and thanked him for his purchase. As the hero was leaving the store, Cody wished him good service, thereby adding insult to injury. Walking down the street, the guy began to reassure himself that if something cannot be avoided, then he must try to enjoy it, and he will try to continue to train hard and try to pass the test again. The young man walked forward with a confident gait. Early morning near the demilitarized zone. The man in uniform was very unhappy as he looked at Sam, calling him an idiot. The boy's hair was cut short, and sweat broke out on his forehead from Corporal Kenny's attacks. When Kenny asked where Sam had seen the soldiers buying weapons, the boy apologized. The corporal asked who had advised Sam to bring a sword with him, and the guy felt goosebumps run down his body. Remembering the faces of the coach and the salesman, the guy got angry. When Private Andrew addressed the boy, he flinched. Sweat was pouring down Sam's face. Sam followed Andrew. When they had moved away, the private smiled and said that the corporal always reacted that way to newcomers, but he was unlikely to return the weapon. When it came to food, Sam said he would eat choco pie. The boys took a regular lunch consisting of boiled eggs, noodles with eggs and additives. During dinner, the hero noticed that the place was different from a normal army. It didn't seem like there was a shortage of people. With his mouth full, Andrew asked the hero if he knew what they were doing in this place. Scratching the back of his head, Sam apologized for his ignorance. The private became gloomy and said that no one knows. When they come to them, everyone thinks that this is a place for guys who failed the Raider test. Andrew asked the question about the monster attacks, looking seriously at his neighbor. Confused, Sam could only answer that something bad would happen. When the private asked what the problem was, the hero pulled himself together and began to answer the question. The guy heard that in the past there was a huge crisis in areas where the Raider system was not developed, so they received help from neighboring countries. When people talk about gates, they imagine huge, dangerous formations. Without letting the guy finish his story, Andrew stood up and ordered Sam to finish his lunch too, and the guys from the dining room went to the flagpoles. Andrew released a slight aura and told our hero to follow him. After what was said, the private jumped up to climb onto the observation deck. Sam was impressed by Andrew's skills. A few seconds later, the private was already at the very top. Soon, Sam released his aura and jumped up. Watching the guy, Andrew was surprised. Sam soon landed next to the private. Looking at the young man, Andrew praised him. The boys began to watch the horizon, where a dark aura was visible. Andrew began his story about the northern part of the demilitarized zone, a place where monsters roam. There was a gloomy atmosphere behind the fence. The monsters emitted a black aura they wanted to kill. Sam felt this atmosphere. He felt uneasy. Watching what was happening behind the fences, Andrew shared his opinion that they were in this area for an emergency. Looking into the distance, Sam realized that this was a new start for him. At 5 in the morning, the alarm went off on the young man's wristwatch. While everyone was sleeping, Sam assumed a sitting position. Taking the kettle, our hero left the room. The night guard yawned from lack of sleep. Noticing the officer on duty, the young man put his hand to his temple, thereby showing respect. The guys started talking about breakfast, which consisted of rice, fish soup, and fried pork. After the conversation, the young man went to fill the kettle with water from the cooler. Having collected water, the young man went back to the room. The loudspeaker on the street announced that it was time to get up. Returning to the room, the guy opened the window, letting in the sunlight, while simultaneously notifying his roommates that it was time to get up. Looking at the first bed, Sam began to wake up Sergeant Nick. When the sergeant woke up, the young man brought him a glass of water. Soon everyone woke up and began to gather for the morning meeting. Sleepy Nick asked if Sam had made his bed, to which the young man pointed to the bed. All companies were already at the assembly point at the right time, and were awaiting further instructions. Captain Mark reported that soldiers would arrive today after the mission, and the rest of us would be responsible for making sure they had a good rest. Turning to Sam, Andrew said that the squad leader was returning today, and therefore asked the young man to be on the alert. Our hero was surprised to hear that the soldiers were on a mission on the northern border. The northern country has almost completely fallen under the onslaught of monsters. A handful of soldiers hold several cities, but they are surrounded by monsters. As a result, the South Country and the allied countries formed their own borders to keep the monsters at bay. They helped the North in exterminating the monsters and the South in defending against attack. The young man was brought out of his thoughts by Andrew's voice, who warned him not to look Sergeant Edie in the eyes, because he really didn't like it. After formation and breakfast, the guys went to the barracks, talking about what would be for lunch today. Entering the room, the guys noticed a man. Andrew was the first to react and ran to Edie to help. The man noticed Sam and asked who he was, and the private said he was new. Getting up from his seat, Eddie said that they would talk later, after he took a shower. The sergeant also asked to unpack his bag. Taking the bag, the guys smelled a smell that, in their opinion, would not go away even after 10 washes. One careless movement and the backpack fell out of Andrew's hands, opening. Someone's head fell to the floor. Having examined the head, the guys realized that the limb belonged to a pest monster with system number 10, Emerith. Having seen the head, the guy went into his thoughts. Having received a gold mark, it is possible to hunt such monsters alone. Lost in thought, the young man did not notice Sergeant Eddie returning. Sitting on the bed, the man began to find out what new things had happened in the unit. Andrew said that the new recruit brought a weapon with him because someone told him that it was mandatory when joining the army. Eddie asked to show what kind of weapon the young man had brought. Sam went to get the weapon, and after showing it to the sergeant, taking the sword, Eddie immediately noticed the engraving. The man was slightly surprised that there was a name written there. When Edie asked the boy's name, the boy said loudly and clearly that his name was Sam. The man continued asking questions, one of them being whether Sam liked the sword. Handing the sword to the owner, Eddie seriously asked if this was true. Taking the sword, the young man confirmed his words that he was preparing to become a raider, but ended up in the army. Turning around, Eddie said that they would all talk later. Now he wanted to rest. Leaving the room, Sam was as pleased as anyone. Walking away from the rooms, Andrew was surprised because he had never seen such a soft expression on the sergeant's face, and asked where the sword came from. When Andrew heard the name of the company, he immediately said that it was Edie's father's company. The sergeant began to further tidy himself up after the difficult mission. Hearing the sergeant talk about the battle, Sam voiced his thoughts that Eddie looked like a great warrior. Evening came and the soldiers gathered for evening formation. The captain asked Sam to tell him about the Brooks monster. The young man began to tell him. System number 23, also known as the Earth Dog. The monsters have strong and sharp teeth. They attack in packs, so it is quite difficult to deal with them. Sometimes you can meet a warrior Brooks among them. The warrior's size and attack power are superior to that of a normal Brooks, causing some to classify the two monsters as two different monsters. The captain praised the guy, asking if he had studied monster studies or something like that, to which Sam replied that he was an ordinary guy who dreamed of becoming a raider. His company comrades also began to praise the young man. They considered him the ace of the team. The captain added to the story about the monster that Brooks has a hard outer shell, followed by a question about where they should attack the monster. One of the privates replied that they needed to attack in the stomach, since that was a blind spot for the monster. After answering, the young man took out his sword and showed how to attack. Mark continued to say that they would practice throwing punches. Taking out his sword, Sam smiled because he hadn't trained with it for a long time. The guy began to practice his strikes. His actions were fast and precise. Only a light trace remained from the sword. Several guys from the squad praised the guy, saying that he was very good at his craft. Another guy called Sam a genius, thereby embarrassing him. A siren sounded over the loudspeaker warning of danger. Everyone was surprised, because this was the first air raid alarm in all that time. The soldiers all gathered for a general meeting, where they announced that the Brookses had been discovered. The last thing the captain said was that everyone needs to survive because their relatives will get pennies for their death. Dust rose from the battle. With deft movements, the soldiers maneuvered between the trees. When Sam arrived at the scene of the battle, he was stunned. There was a whole army of earth dogs in front of the guy. The soldiers who had just arrived took up spears to fight. Captain Mark gathered Aura into a spear and was about to launch it at the monsters. A battle began between people and monsters. The soldiers were serious about winning. One of the soldiers asked Sam to stay behind. Turning back, the young man noticed the monster. The guy's aura enveloped his entire body. Strike and the monster is defeated. Brucus attacked the guys from the side. Sam noticed him. To strike, the boy gathered aura into his weapon. In a moment, Sam struck the monster in the stomach. After the attack, the boys stood back to protect their blind spots. Looking to the side, the guys realized that there was no end to the monsters. One of the soldiers fell during the fight, opening himself up to Brucus's attack. Warrior Brucus began to approach his opponent in order to destroy him. The soldiers were afraid for their commander Mark. The little monsters did not let the soldiers get close to the warrior, did not allow them to interfere with his enjoyment of the food. The monster grabbed the man's hand and squeezed it. Sam watched everything that was happening with fear. A scene of James and the monsters fighting appeared before his eyes, in which Sam could not help because of fear. The next moment before my eyes, where the schoolboy lost his arms. From the memories, the guy gathered all the aura in his hands. Sam ran forward with a sharp jerk to help the captain. At this time, the monster raised its paw to deliver the final blow. Sam was faster than the monster and parried the blow. Reflecting the blow, the young man concluded that the monster was strong and clearly different from the usual Brucus. Nosha was accumulating aura in the sword for the next strike. With a deft movement, the guy struck. The sword's movements left a deep mark. Lunging forward, Sam struck at the monster's blind spot. The monster's blood got on the boy's face and clothes. The captain and the soldier who was helping him were surprised. Having defeated Brucus, Sam exhaled. Noticing that their boss was defeated, the small earth dogs began to attack the hero. Exhaling, the guy threw the sword over his shoulder, charging it with aura. Having taken a fighting stance, the guy prepared to repel the blows of his opponents. After the battle, soldiers cleared the area of beetle corpses. Sam fell down from fatigue. One of the soldiers approached the hero from behind. Sam jumped up, stating his name and rank. The soldier asked him why he hadn't passed the Raider test. Then Sam shared that he wasn't good at writing essays, which surprised the soldier. Sam showed concern and handed the bloody flask of water to the soldier, who was his senior in rank. The soldier asked with a look of disgust to remove the flask. The next day, rumors about the talented newcomer began to spread through the barracks. A couple of soldiers stopped Sam in the hallway and asked what was for breakfast, to which the guy immediately replied that they would be serving rice, tofu soup, and fried sausages with greens. When the soldiers received the answer, they turned around and walked away, discussing that Sam was the same young man who saved his comrade. Edie appeared behind the guy. The young man shuddered in surprise. The sergeant announced that rumors about Sam had already reached the top. The guy was a little confused by what he heard and asked for forgiveness. To calm the guy down, Sergeant Eddie patted the guy on the shoulder to calm him down. As Eddie walked further, he asked the young man to follow him. The guys with guns came out onto the sports ground in front of the building. Eddie asked the young man to hold the sword tighter, and the boy did so, squeezing the weapon tighter in his hands. The sergeant asked if our hero had tried sparring. Sam was a little confused but agreed. The man began to lift his sword from the ground. Without giving the guy time to come to his senses, Edie attacked Sam. Sam blocked every blow from his opponent. The guy was focused on the training battle. Edie's movements were fast and precise, leaving a trail of light behind each swing. Sam fought off the sergeant's attacks with difficulty, noticing that the man was fast. Each of Eddie's strikes is more powerful than the last, as if he had practiced the same technique several times. The sergeant stopped, said that the fight was not bad, and the guy defended himself well. Now it was Sam's turn to attack. Sam noticed the sword. Then Eddie told him that his sword was made in the same place where his was. Model K's 152, a high-class product of the Metal Giant Company. Our hero had a training sword model XL2. It has elegance and power. Removing his hand behind his neck, Eddie praised the guy for his good taste. Several soldiers watched the fight between the sergeant and the recruit. Andrew, watching the fight, expressed his opinion that Sam was holding up well. Kenny called for the private to move on, and Andrew obeyed the order. Edie decided to strike with his foot, because every attack of his was a step towards victory. Sam dodged because if you miss one blow, you can end up on the brink of death. Eddie didn't give in to the boy and continued to attack. During the battle, Sam noticed that the level of sparring was on a completely different level than Vanessa's. Eddie's attack caused the young man to lose his balance. After some time, the guys finished the fight. They were tired. Sam, tired, thanked the sergeant for the battle, who asked if he could become a raider after finishing his service. The young man encouraged Eddie by saying that the boy was strong and could easily become a raider. Taking a breath, Sam wondered if his fighting skills had improved while he was in the army. The guys started talking about how Eddie got involved. The sergeant said that he volunteered. He didn't want to end his service without any results. The sergeant also shared a story about how his father was ashamed that Eddie failed the raider exam. When Sam asked what was beyond the border, the atmosphere around Edie changed. It became more gloomy. The guy answered that it was hell there. The gloomy and uncomfortable atmosphere made the young man swallow the lump that appeared from the elder's story. When our hero asked why the mission was in a northern country, the guy told him that because of intelligence, he was told that there was something there, but the soldiers were not told the details. Edie also advised Sam to go on a mission once, since he was so curious about it all. When the boy did not understand why the elder had said this, Eddie turned and explained that he meant going on a mission. The young man raised his hand to his face and awkwardly said that he simply wanted to inquire about the elder's activities. Sam stood guard at night. The guards watched through binoculars a monster that looked like a deer. It was a pest monster, system number 11, Bugak. Its special feature was its huge horns. You have to be extremely careful with them, because the enemy's body will start to rot if you touch them. The guy asked if Sam would continue trying to become a raider, to which the young man responded in agreement. The private shared that he had decided to give up his dream of becoming a raider, and Sam became curious about why. The guy pointed out that our hero failed the exam, which means he will fail too. Listening to the elder, Sam realized that they were very similar. A creature resembling a human began to emerge from the forest. Having noticed this creature, the guys turned on the flashlight and their hands reached for their weapons. When something came closer, the guys were surprised. Chris sent Sam to alert the squad about the approaching unknown person. When the creature came out into the moonlight, it was clear that it was a human. The deer noticed the man and decided to attack him. The monster's eyes turned red and steam came out of its nose. When the deer attacked the stranger, the boys were afraid for him and shouted for him to go away. The man gathered aura in his hand and delivered a lightning strike. The unknown person decapitated the monster with one movement of his hand. When the guys shone the light on the man, he asked for help, but a moment later he fell. The guys were shocked and didn't know what to do, and since then they haven't heard anything about that man. At lunch, the guys started talking about forming a new group for the mission. Kenny gave the example of Sergeant Eddie. Even though he is strong, he still comes in battered, and most of the soldiers come in critical condition. Sam was serious. He wanted to go on missions to become stronger and satisfy his curiosity. After eating, Kenny stood up. Soon, Kenny and Sam were in the boss's office. The boys said they wanted to volunteer for the mission. Kevin looked at those. The major's gaze was empty and cold. The young man noticed the man's face. He didn't understand what was wrong with him. While the guy was looking at the senior corporal's face, he said that they wanted to participate in the mission, which surprised the young man. Kevin stood up, thinking. After the major approached, he asked their names and positions. The man pierced the boys with his cold gaze. Sam didn't take his eyes off the man and looked at him confidently. Smiling slightly, Kevin praised the guy for his resilience and good attitude. The young man breathed a sigh of relief. After some time, the car with the soldiers set out on a mission. The soldiers rode in silence until Sam interrupted, curious as to why Kenny had agreed to the mission. The guy started making excuses, saying that he didn't mean anything bad. Kenny replied that it was simply time to get a sergeant, and if he did nothing, he would be kicked out of the army. There was another reason, as the corporal put it. He was a funny newcomer. Hugging the guy around the neck, Kenny asked him to keep an eye on him in the North Country properly. Otherwise, upon his return, Sam would become a sewing machine. The young man didn't understand how this could happen, but the elder explained that he would be darning socks, thereby raising the mood of both himself and the new recruit. Soon, everyone gathered at the base. Brandon explained the tasks. The soldiers had to reach the city of K, where the garrison would meet them, and then return back. One of the soldiers asked what the seniors would do if they encountered soldiers from the north side, to which Brandon replied that it was classified information. Kevin didn't say a word during the entire presentation. Sam noticed the major and asked if it was he in the office then, to which he received a positive answer. The corporal assumed that Kevin was leading this mission. There was something creepy in the man's eyes. The border was surrounded by barbed wire. After crossing the demilitarized zone, the soldier had to walk, as the monsters are sensitive to exhaust fumes and smoke. Kenny didn't understand why the sergeant said that the north side was a real hell. There was nothing special there. Looking around, Sam noticed that it was suspiciously quiet around. The soldiers noticed that if there were no birds or animals in the forest, then the reason was obvious monsters. Sam walked along, lost in thought. The guy's aura began to manifest itself. He did not understand why he was nervous. The young man suddenly grabbed Kenny by the elbow, and he was surprised. Sam had just managed to report that there was something under his feet when an explosion occurred. Kevin and Brandon turned around at the soldiers' screams, and that was when they realized that a pest monster, System Number 185 Statum, had appeared. Sam was thrown to the side by the blast wave. The guy fell off a cliff. The corporal managed to grab the young man by the collar. Kenny himself held onto the tree trunk with one hand. Soon the corporal pulled the guy out, and after that both guys activated their aura. When Statum senses the presence of a human, it burrows underground. So it was necessary to hide in the sand and wait for the right moment to attack. The trunk that emerged from under the ground spat out something round. The soldiers quickly rushed to the attack. A quick movement and the trunk was split into pieces. Kenny said he could handle the rest himself and ordered Sam to check on his comrades. The young man noticed one wounded soldier standing near a tree. Coming closer, he learned the soldier's condition, but he only said that he seemed to be dying. The guy started helping the wounded man when his attention was drawn. Someone was able to grab the trunk with one hand and squeeze it with the help of aura. It was Major Kevin. His aura was frightening. The man extended his hand forward. Sam would be surprised by the Major's skills. One of the soldiers approached Kevin, holding something in his hand. Taking a closer look, Sam realized that it was a suitcase. The guy became interested in what kind of case it was and what was in it. Soon the battle was over and the Major praised everyone. The young man listened to the order of the elder that all the wounded should return to the base before they went too far. But after that, they would not be able to return to the mission. Kenny finally admitted that they were in real hell, and he caught the guy's attention. The young man said that he heard that Statum is a very rare monster. Apparently, they were misinformed. In just 3 days, the detachment had 3 major and 5 minor battles, which resulted in heavy losses. Kevil raised his hand up, thus indicating a halt. The soldiers began to gather for a rest stop, coming closer. Brandon orders everyone to remain vigilant. As soon as the holiday began, Kenny began to get indignant that they weren't even told what they were waiting for. Later, the guy went to the toilet. Sam decided not to waste time and train his aura. The guy pressed his hand to his heart. Sam found it funny that the further they went north, the stronger his aura became. Using his aura, the guy read the atmosphere around him. The guy felt someone's presence from the bushes. Closing his eyes, the young man concentrated to understand what was wrong. With the help of concentration, the guy felt that something was moving in their direction. He immediately reported his suspicions by drawing his sword. Several frightened soldiers appeared behind Sam. Noise could already be heard from the forest. The boy was already ready for battle and called on the monster to come out. They began to emerge from the forest. It turns out that soldiers from the north were approaching the detachment, not monsters. Sam realized that he looked like a fool now. Nate and Kevin started talking about how there were fewer monsters last time. In a moment, the atmosphere changed slightly. Nate began to look arrogantly at his opponent. Kevin gestured to the soldier with the briefcase. The suitcase was safe and sound. Looking at Naya with cold eyes, the major asked if he would check the contents. Sam watched everything from the sidelines and didn't quite understand what was happening. He began to guess what was inside the case. Kenny got a little angry at him, remembering that it was the young man who shouted about monsters, but he just scratched the back of his head guiltily. The corporal picked up his backpack. When Sam asked if he was interested in what they were risking their lives for, he replied that he was not very interested. Afterwards, the guy listened to advice that it is better to sometimes close your eyes and plug your ears for some action. The young man was slightly upset. Dusk fell on the land as the soldiers passed through the fields. Soon the people stopped. The reason for the stop was a sign about a fork in the road. Nate suggested splitting up. With a smile, the man reminded the major that the monster's behavior had changed, and since there was a whole crowd ahead, it would be better to go around them. Kevin looked at the northern commander with a gloomy face. Nate continued to smile, saying if they didn't believe it, they could check it out for themselves. Kevin began to suspect that Nate was up to something and kept his eyes on him. The man in turn continued to smile. Sam didn't understand why they stopped. The corporal became interested in what his superiors were talking about. Kenny asked what a kinesis was. The young man explained that they were plant monsters. Sam continued to tell that the kinesis looked like roses. The monster stood motionless, but as soon as it noticed its victim, it pounced on it with lightning speed. The northern soldier was surprised that the young man knew so much about monsters. Afterwards, Sam became curious about the soldier's name, since he didn't have a name patch. The guys continued their conversation. When the young man introduced himself, the northern soldier's face darkened, and he said that he saw no point in exchanging names, since this was their first and last meeting. The guy felt that something was happening from behind. Turning around with the corporal, Their faces were frozen in horror at what they saw. Plant monsters began to devour the soldiers. The squad was trapped, surrounded by monsters on every side. Kevin grabbed Nate to hit him, because it was the Northern commander's fault that this situation had arisen. Nate smiled, saying that he seemed to have gotten it a little mixed up. Kevin didn't understand why the man had trapped them. Nate chuckled. He was sure Kevin knew the answer to his own question. Sam turned around and shouted that they needed to retreat. There was an explosion behind the guy. Sam's gaze was directed at the soldier on the north side. The soldier was determined to kill our hero. The young man took the sword and released his aura. The flower monster began to attack. The northern soldier began to attack along with the flower. Sam quickly dodged the monster's attack. The young man did not understand why the enemy was attacking together with the monster. Having dodged another blow, the guy began to attack himself. When our hero began to call out to the corporal, Kenny quickly responded, indicating his location. Looking at his younger comrade, he said that they needed to flee the battlefield. Another explosion thundered from the side. The squad leaders emerged from the smoke. Nate asked if the major had ever thought about what would happen when the enemy was destroyed. Kevin immediately realized that a coup had occurred. The enemy deftly dodged any attack. Smiling, Nate called the major quite a group man. The atmosphere around Kevin changed. It became very heavy, and there was ice in his gaze. Nate felt the bloodlust building in his opponent. Using his aura, Kevin was able to strike his opponent. Nate covered his injured ear with his hand. After the pain subsided a little, he began to attack himself. Kevin was thrown back by an opponent's blow to the shoulder. Blood began to flow from the wound. The man fell on his back, losing consciousness. The blow caused blood to spurt out from Kevin's mouth. The flower monster grabbed the man's body. In an instant, the monster was destroyed by the major's aura. Kevin began to pull the blade out of his shoulder. The man cried out in pain, but there was only rage in his eyes. Noticing what was happening to the major, he realized that he had lost his mind. Sam asked the corporal to follow him. The young man moved forward, delivering quick and accurate blows to the monsters. Our hero cleared the area for Corporal Kenny. After finishing, he looked back to check how far the corporal was from him. The young man noticed a man lying on the ground. Apparently, he had been wounded in the stomach. Behind Kenny, the boy noticed enemies attacking his comrades. Watching everything that was happening, the young man tried to quickly understand what to do. Sam realized that he had only one way out. He couldn't do otherwise. Gathering his strength and will into a fist, the young man squeezed the hilt of the sword and released an aura. Our hero moved towards the enemies to help Kenny. Fast and precise trained movements helped the guy deal with his opponents in no time. Looking back, the boy ordered the corporal to get up. Afterwards, Sam helped the elder to his feet. Smiling, the young man decided to support Kenny, saying that they would definitely survive. Turning their backs to the enemy, the boys did not notice how the northern soldier began to rise. The enemy had a grenade in his hands, and the guy was about to pull the pin. Sam noticed the enemy's actions. There was nothing he could do. The grenade was too close to them. The guys were thrown back by the explosion. Sam was hit in the head by shrapnel. Our hero reached for his weapon, gripping the hilt of his sword tightly. The enemy was preparing to strike with his blade. The guy stood up, collecting all the aura in his legs. The fact that Sam stood up made the northern soldier slightly recoil, not understanding where the guy got his strength from. A quick move forward and the enemy was defeated. After the attack, our hero's aura disappeared and he staggered. Soon he completely lost his balance and fell forward. Looking at his older friend, the young man noticed emptiness in his eyes. Sam realized that Kenny would not help him and would leave him to die. The boy still extended his hand to the corporal. Hoping for help, he didn't want to believe that he would abandon him. The man turned around and wanted to leave. But then he turned around and looked at Sam with a look full of hatred. Kenny kicked his former comrade away to his certain death. Sam realized that no one would help him. The northern enemy began to approach the guy, and he became interested in whether the southerners really had any moral obligations to their comrades. The enemy was ready to destroy Sam. This is the last thing he remembered before losing consciousness. Sunlight fell on the young man's bandaged hand. Soon Sam began to regain consciousness. Having taken a sitting position, the guy looked around. The hero tried to understand where he was, when he noticed that his sword was lying near the bed. Reaching for the weapon, the guy became curious if there were any other survivors besides him. A look of sadness crossed his face. Looking at the sword, the image of Corporal Kenny, who abandoned him on his deathbed, appeared before the boy's eyes. Having lowered his legs from the bed, the young man did not want to remember it anymore. A noise was heard from the corridor. When the old man entered the room, Sam was already lying in bed, as if he had not yet regained consciousness. When the old man started talking about meat, sweat began to run down the young man's face. While the owner of the house stood with his back turned, Sam reached for the sword with his hand. Taking the sword more firmly, the guy pointed it at the old man. Having looked closely, the hero did not notice that the old man had disappeared from his previous place. The guy felt uneasy when the thought of a ghost came to his mind. When the old man levitated above his head, he called out to Sam, thereby frightening him. The owner began to tell that he just wanted to joke about the meat because the guy was pretending to be asleep. For his rude behavior, the old man decided to teach the young man a lesson by pressing his foot on the fresh wounds. The blow knocked Sam off his bed. Lying on the floor, the thought came to mind that this old man, a legendary master who lived alone in the land of monsters, accidentally met a young man who was at death's door and saved him, and then passed on his knowledge to him. The guy quickly stood up, bowed his head, and introduced himself, asking the master for forgiveness. The old man hit the boy on the head with a stick. Taking hold of the sore spot, the young man realized that this was not a great master. Sam kept repeating the same answer, that he was a private, to the old man's same question. The old man began to talk about the harmonious and pure energy that emanated from the guy. Sam was surprised when old Andy realized that the boy's energy was like primordial chaos. While the old man was thinking, the young man did not waste time, and decided to find out what happened to the others. Grandfather reported that the soldiers from the southern lands almost all died, and the people's army retreated. Andy mentioned Kenny, who abandoned our hero. Then he mentioned Major Kevin, from whom strange energy emanated, and said that both men survived. And when asked if Sam would be able to return, the old man replied that he didn't know. Old man Andy's house was underground and the door was iron. The old man led the boy to the cliff. Sam decided to share his guess that Andy was from the north, to which he received a positive answer. Grandfather said that he was not in the northern country for long, because he needed to do one thing. Andy shared his food supplies with the young man, because he was hungry. When asked where the old man got the instant noodles, he replied that he bought them in a store. Soon they cooked the noodles and ate. After lunch, the old man decided to take a walk. Andy asked Sam not to think about anything and to focus on his health. Grandpa went deep into the forest. When Sam was left alone, there were even more unnecessary thoughts in his head. The thought that his parents would worry made the young man clench his fist. The guy closed his eyes to concentrate. Sam decided to focus only on his health. For this, he decided to read the aura. A few days later, the guy was there making noodles. Sam was curious about what Grandpa was up to. Once the young man recovered, the old man decided to show him what the matter was. When the old man told him to follow him, the boy was unhappy with this because he had not finished cooking yet. Andy began jumping across the treetops. Sam ran after him along the ground. Out of breath from running, the young man did not understand why the old man was moving so quickly. Soon, the boy caught up with the older man and climbed up his tree. Andy pointed to the People's Army base. Grandpa said that the real evil is at the base. Looking at the buildings, Andy's face was serious. A dark aura emanated from the base. The base was guarded by soldiers of the People's Army. The grandfather reached into his bosom to get a flask of drink. When the young man asked for a drink too, the grandfather refused. Andy reported that the People's Army was conducting biological experiments at the base. Soon they went home. Looking at the young man, the grandfather said that there should be no sinister force. Sam and Grandpa stopped because someone was ahead. He was a soldier of the People's Army. The man was very angry. The soldier had a karambit knife in his hand. The guy realized that the aura from the base and the aura of the person in front of them were one and the same. Andy and this soldier knew each other. Grandpa thanked Jerry for meeting him. Andy sent Sam ahead, but he began to worry. Grandpa was forced to fight Jerry, who was already oozing bloodlust. When Andy offered to fight the soldier, the boy refused. Having made sure that his grandfather could handle it, the young man decided to leave. Having looked at the enemy for the last time, the young man concluded that it was a beast in human form. Jerry got tired of waiting, so he attacked first. Andy pushed Sam away so he wouldn't get hurt. The impact threw the guy high into the sky. Our hero came to the conclusion that Grandpa was not an ordinary person. When Sam landed, he had to find his way home. On the way, the guy met Jarg. Without thinking twice, the guy reached for his weapon, but the sword was not on the shoulder. The monster wanted to attack the unarmed guy. Sam realized that he had to come up with something quickly, otherwise he would die at the fangs of the monster. Without thinking twice, the guy extended his hand to the dog. The monster didn't expect this, and was a little confused. While the monster did not understand what was happening, the young man knelt down on one knee and stroked him. Sam remembered the moment when he almost died and thought that even monsters don't want to die. Continuing to show affection to the dog, the boy asked if he wanted to go with him. Sam continued on his way with his new friend. When he came home, the guy took a saucepan and cups and went to the river to collect water to cook something to eat. The monster began to sniff, and Sam concluded that the dog was hungry. To feed his friend, the guy threw him a piece of meat. Just recently, our hero thought that after the army he would pass the exam to become a raider. But now he is sitting on the riverbank with some kind of animal and waiting for an incomprehensible old man. Sam decided to take a nap after eating. In a dream, the guy saw his life go by. Sam looked sadly at his old self, who was eating away his problems. When the past Sam looked at the present one, his eyes were bottomless black. Afterwards, the complete double began to attack Sam. The double opened its mouth to devour the young man. Opening his eyes, Sam realized that his new four-legged friend wanted to eat him. With one movement of his hand, the guy cut off Jorg's head. The young man did not understand why the animal attacked him. He even fed it. While washing his hands, Sam realized that animals are all like that. They obey temporarily, but instincts always prevail over reason. Sam remembered his comrade running away, who was needed in a difficult moment. Looking at his reflection in the river, the guy realized that this is always the case in life. It was evening when Andy returned. The young man was glad to see the old man alive. Because the guy was too noisy, he got hit in the face with a stick. Grandpa reported that the outcome of the battle was a draw. Sam didn't understand why the old man called him by name. Andy was wondering how much time the boy had left until the end of his service. Then Sam said that it was a little over a year. Grandpa asked me to spend the remaining time of service on him. A few days later, the boy trained with Mandrake, who makes an unusual sound, calling other monsters. Monsters of various kinds began to gather around the root. Mandrake absorbed the blood that they shed during the battle, which served as her source of nutrition. Sam watched all the monsters from his hiding place. The Jorgs were very angry at what was in front of them. It was a monster that looked like a bear with horns. With a smile on his face, the young man realized that it was now his turn to intervene. The guy came out to the monsters who were fighting against each other. After some time, all the monsters were defeated. Looking around, Sam noticed a couple of monsters near the Mandrake root. When the young man began to approach, the bull-like monsters became frightened. Mandrake was startled when the boy's sword plunged into the ground next to her. Sam crouched down next to it to pull it out of the ground. The guy noticed that the bulls had stopped. Wiping the sweat from his face, the young man ordered the bulls to follow him. Our hero returned to his grandfather accompanied by 2 bulls. When Sam returned, old man Andy began to grumble that he had been gone for a long time. There was a saucepan on the stove in which food was being cooked. While the water was boiling, the grandfather decided to ask how the mission with Mandrake went. The old man was irritated that the young man had not yet understood anything, and he, in turn, pouted like a child. The guy didn't understand why they were picking on him because he was in the army. The monsters realized that they would not survive after all. Soon the pan was empty. After lunch, Sam and Andy started training. While hunting monsters, Sam honed his skills through training. While training with the old man, the young man did not notice how a year flew by. Andy dodged another attack from the young man. The grandfather did not remain in debt and also struck a blow, which the boy parried. From the grandfather's blow, an aura emanated in circles. Moving away from the old man, the guy grabbed the sword more firmly. Andy praised Sam because he had learned a lot. While attacking, the boy said that it was all thanks to the old man. Grandpa noted that with the skills he had acquired, the boy could easily cope with the black mark. Andy began to stretch his shoulders, old age making itself felt. The young man turned to the teacher, thereby attracting his attention. When Sam announced that there were only 2 weeks left until their mission, Andy became serious. Soon the teacher and student got tired and decided to take a break. 2 weeks later, Andy fell asleep to rest before the mission that was to take place the next day. Sam couldn't sleep because of the thoughts that were creeping into his head. The young man and the master were supposed to destroy the gates to hell, and the boy would finally return home. Our hero became interested in when he returned and would be interviewed. Sam began to imagine how beautiful girls would interview him. Advertising banners with his image are hung all over the city. His autobiography will be published, and everyone will be talking about him in the news. The guy couldn't even imagine that he could become a raider thanks to this. The young man closed his eyes. Sam remembered his first meeting with Jerry. He remembered the battles with the soldier from the northern country. It seemed to him that if he met Jerry, he could easily inflict serious wounds on him. And it's possible that he'll even kill you in a couple of attacks. The young man decided to sleep anyway to gain strength. After a long night, the long-awaited morning came. The guy put on suitable shoes. I also put on comfortable clothes. Having taken everything he needed, Sam was ready to hit the road. The old man and the student exchanged pleasantries. Andy handed the guy a thing that was incomprehensible to him. The young man thought they were car keys. The guy pressed the button in the center a couple of times, but nothing happened. Suddenly, an explosion thundered behind the guy. Andy explained that before the final battle, it is customary to destroy the place where you can return. Grandpa turned around and walked to the place where everything was supposed to happen. Sam was determined to finish everything quickly so he could get home. Andy and the young man arrived at the People's Army base in the evening. The People's Army is conducting research into mass-producing raiders using the dark aura. It dawned on Sam that Jerry had been a great raider. But after the experiments, he had turned into a real monster. You can't leave everything as is, because something terrible could happen. Andy ordered to follow him. Grandpa activated Shadow Step. There were guards on the roof, and the army had strengthened its defenses. Andy and Sam hid behind a rock, while the soldiers were chatting pleasantly with each other. Sam was sneaking closer like a mouse. Having climbed onto the roof, the young man neutralized one of the soldiers. The second soldier wanted to warn about the invasion, but the old man shut him up. With a satisfied face, Sam tied up the opponents who were unconscious. Andy went inside, calling the boy to follow him. The soldiers of the People's Army did not even realize that they were being attacked and were calmly eating dinner. Grandpa and his students were very quiet. Andy shared rumors about the birthday of the new leader of the People's Army. The young man could not even imagine that the enemy leader would help him. Soon they climbed one of the hills. Putting the backpack on the ground, the guy opened it and began to take out a package from there. After his release, the young man handed over the mandrake root to his teacher. Sam watched as the old man released his aura. Sensing the aura, the root began to scream. Andy amplified Mandrake's scream several times with his power. Sam covered his ears from such a scream. The screams reached every corner of the People's Army base. When the root had exhausted all its power, the old man got rid of it. After the shout, the soldiers began to search for enemies who had penetrated their territory. The aura from the gates of hell became thicker than before. The old man covered the younger man's mouth so as not to draw attention to their persons. The soldiers knew that monsters would arrive soon. Our heroes were finally discovered. Without thinking for long, Sam and Andy jumped from the roof. One of the soldiers transmitted over the radio the location of the enemies. Looking to the side, the man froze in horror. A huge horned monster was approaching the base. There were already many monsters at the walls, and soldiers were trying to stop their invasion. The soldier asked to bring the commander. While running, the young man had time to admire his grandfather. When our heroes were almost at their destination, enemy soldiers appeared on their way. Andy deftly dodged the enemy's attack. The old man struck the soldier right on the back of the neck. Working as a team, the teacher and student quickly moved towards their goal. Sam continued to clear the area along the way. The guy acted very quickly, like a ninja. Soon they reached the gates of hell. Grandpa took out a scroll. Andy continued to lay out scrolls around the perimeter of the gate. The young man watched the teacher silently. The aura became thicker and thicker. Suddenly Sam felt something. Looking to the side, the boy noticed Jerry attacking him. Not expecting the attack, the young man was wounded by the blade. Sam was thrown back by the force of the blow straight into the gates of hell. Andy managed to grab the young man by the jacket. With all his efforts, he was able to throw the guy out of the depths of hell by changing places with him. Grandfather clasped his palms together across his chest and began to cast a spell. While the old man sat in the lotus position, his aura began to be fed by magic from the scrolls, filling the entire hole. Jerry covered his eyes with his hand from the bright light, but he didn't understand what Andy was doing. Looking at the enemy, the man ordered the ritual of closing the gate to be completed, to ensure that the teacher could finish what he started. Sam rushed into battle to protect his elder so that the mission would be successful. As the blades of the opponents met, the sworn enemies exchanged harsh words. The young man watched Jerry closely and tried to anticipate his attacks. The man was seriously excited by the fight. His thirst for blood took over his entire body. Reflecting another blow from the enemy, Sam flew up from the force of the blow. Soon the young man crashed into the wall, leaving a mark of his body in it. The force of the impact of his body against the wall damaged the boy's internal organs, causing him to cough up blood. As Jerry began to direct our hero's side, Sam stood up. The People's Army soldier became more like a monster as the dark aura engulfed him. Sam decided to attack first, saying that Jerry was throwing a masquerade by wearing a demon costume. When the opponents met with swords, the force of the blows was so strong that the guy's aura emanated to the sides, thus depicting a dome. At that moment, our hero lost his vigilance, and the enemy struck him in the stomach with his knee. The impact sent the young man flying back several meters. Sam didn't want to lose. Gathering aura in the sword, he rushed to attack. The guy's pupils turned blue due to excessive use of force. Jerry decided to teach the boy a lesson, and so, using his sword and aura, he erected a wall of lightning between them. Sam turned out to be no slouch and decided to come from behind the enemy, considering it a blind spot. Before his opponent noticed him, Sam decided to strike him in the back. Jeremy grabbed the sword with his bare hands, telling the boy to give up. He couldn't win. Despite the failed attack, Sam continued to press on the hilt of the sword. He was serious about winning. Jerry, continuing to hold on to the blades, was easily able to move the enemy's weapon to the side, surprising the guy. In an instant, the man threw the weapon and its owners aside. This time our hero hit the wall harder, so much so that dust even rose up. While sliding down the wall, the guy coughed up quite a lot of blood, and his internal organs suffered even more, since the volume of fluid increased. At the moment, the base has turned into a real death zone. Buildings are burning. Monsters are raging everywhere. To cope with evil spirits, you need a strong aura. Our hero did not give up and released his aura, thereby gaining power. Taking off his helmet, the young man sank knee-deep into the waters of consciousness. Thoughts came to mind that if you try to survive, you will die. If you wish to die, then you will remain alive. Sam gave his blood, his heart, and his soul. He gave his all to a place that was higher than this. The aura began to gather into a kind of whirlpool. Andy continued to focus his power on closing the gates of hell while the student distracted the enemy. Sergeant Jerry thought he would only have to deal with the old man, but his young opponent turned out to be tenacious. Sam's eye began to emit thin lightning of aura. He could not allow the teacher to be disturbed. Without thinking, the guy attacked the enemy, delivering a fairly quick blow that left a trace of aura. Sam delivered fairly fast blows. Jerry blocked them with difficulty. The man did not understand where the guy got so much strength from. During the fight, the blows in defense created a light ball of aura, from which rays of light emanated in different directions. The soldier flew back several meters from another blow from his young opponent. The man did not expect this, and was very unhappy. A bright light appeared from the side of the gate, blinding Jerry. Looking towards the gate, the man saw that the gate was covered with a bright dome. Jerry could not believe that the old man was able to complete his technique. A dragon landed on one of the roofs and immediately began to cry. Jerry was shocked when he saw the monster, so he cursed several times in a row. Seeing a soldier nearby, the man ordered a signal to be given about the monsters that had entered the base territory. Following the dragon, a huge minotaur stepped onto the base. The man was very angry. He shouted that he would destroy all the creatures on the base territory. Sam was as calm as a boa constrictor, ready to rush into battle again. Jerry rushed forward at his opponent to destroy him first. A private soldier rushed to the control panel to give a signal. Having reached the lever, the guy pulled it. Light purple liquid poured from red cylinders onto the dome from all sides. Soon the liquid ate through the dome, and Andy could be seen levitating into the center. In front of the old man's outstretched hand was a glowing, rewound, stretched rope. The energy of the scrolls, which lay across the entire diameter of the circle, began to emerge into the light of the twine. Andy calmly waited for all the power of the scrolls to gather in the rope, while a bluish-hued energy swirled around the old man himself. The power of Grandpa's deed scrolls was even stronger. A surge of aura could be clearly seen in his eyes. After all the energy was collected, a ball appeared in front of Andy, into which all the collected power oozed from the old man's finger. From the depths of hell, deceased people were drawn to the light of the ball. They wanted to get the warmth and vital light that they had not received for a long time. At this time, more and more flying monsters arrived at the People's Army base. They were attracted by the strong energy that emanated from the gates of hell. While Andy closed the gate, his student Sam distracted the soldier Jerry, not letting him get to the area where the mission was taking place. When the soldier noticed the commotion around him, he looked to the side and realized that his worst enemy was already finishing the ritual. And this meant only one thing: Jerry was too late and could not stop him. All the dark energy that was on the base and near it began to disappear into the whirlpool of the gate. After finishing the fight, Sam immediately ran to his teacher. The young man was worried and wanted to make sure that the elder was okay. Seeing the student in good health, Andy smiled, thereby saying that everything was fine with him and there was no need to worry. A monster with horns and wings appeared behind the man. His aura was very dark. It was the Lord of Hell. He didn't like that some little man dared to ruin all his plans. Andy didn't even have time to react when the monster's paw pierced his body. One day, Sam and Andy went to the cliff, and the young man became interested in why his grandfather lived alone in such a place. The old man replied that it was because of his mistakes. The young man became interested in what kind of mistakes. The grandfather told him that he acted immorally in the name of well-being, deceived others for the sake of his own glory. After spring comes summer, and after summer comes autumn and winter. Anyone can change if they want to. But there were things in the world that never changed, and the young man did not remember what these things were. Due to damage to internal organs, Andy began coughing up blood. The grandfather's body hung on the monster's paw. He did not have the strength to continue fighting, so he stopped trying and decided to just die. Seeing the teacher in a sad state, Sam rushed to his aid. Jerry was not going to let go of one of the reasons for the failed mission, and was going to destroy it. Looking at the enemy, our hero's gaze said only one thing: Sam was ready to kill anyone who stood in his way at the moment. The guy turned around and quickly struck with his aura. The force of the blow was so strong that it threw the enemy back several meters. Seeing that the student was running to help him, the grandfather gathered his last strength and whispered that Sam should not come closer and run. As soon as Sam realized what the teacher wanted to say, he ran. The guy ran further and further. Sam saw himself in the past. But people change. The guy met many of those people who were kind to him. Our hero ran to help his teacher. He didn't want to run away. He changed, became different. A bright glow accompanied the guy. Having collected all the aura, the guy attacked the Lord of Hell. The demon looked at the young man. The creature released some of its aura to remove unnecessary people. The bright glow that blinded the young man appeared out of nowhere. Sam didn't understand where he was. The guy began to look around. There was no aura in this place. Our hero realized that something must be wrong somewhere. He waved his sword, and the young man cut through one of the walls of space. As soon as the guy looked into the connector, he was surprised. Through the crack, the guy saw the silhouette of a man with long hair. In an instant, the guy began to fall further somewhere. The city looked beautiful when the electricity came on at night. The tropics beckoned with their warmth. The sun's rays hid among the leaves as if playing hide and seek. The snowy mountains threatened to freeze any unwanted visitor. Closing his eyes, Sam fell deeper into the darkness. Soon he found himself in a deserted, cold space where there was not a single soul. Grandfather saw a student in outer space and called him an idiot. The boy turned his head to the side and met the teacher's gaze. Sam was very tired. When the teacher and student were on the same level, the old man stretched out his hand forward. A clot of light appeared in Andy's palm, and thanks to this energy, the old man ordered Sam to live on. Light energy struck the young man's body with lightning speed, and he began to fall to the ground with lightning speed. The guy didn't understand what was happening and where he was falling. Sam woke up already on the ground. The sword was stuck nearby. This was not an ordinary world. The trees were strangely shaped. Sam realized that something big had appeared behind him. It was a large, four-eyed monster, similar to a dinosaur, who looked at our hero with curiosity. Sam noticed that there was a solid purple fog all around, and there were 2 moons in the sky, and strange plants were growing everywhere. Our hero realized that he was in deep trouble and did not understand what world he was in, or to be more precise, what universe. 3 years passed. The sun's rays illuminated the walls of the SH company. A young man of about 20 years of age entered the office with a cup of coffee. There was already a man sitting in the room. The guys exchanged greetings and started an everyday conversation. Kerr began to complain to Paul that there had been a lot of work lately and no time to rest. The process had gone too far ahead, and that was the problem. The man suggested that they drop everything, but Paul refused. The idea wasn't his thing. When everyone arrived, a meeting of the raiders began, where Poppy explained that signs of a gate had been discovered in residential area A. While Paul was listening to the girl's report, several men were discussing something heatedly. The men discussed how one of them would have a green mark next month. Paul looked at those. Recently, the raiders are not afraid of the gate at all. Thanks to the development of technology, it has been possible to reduce the percentage of damage that occurs. The raider ranks were divided by levels. Now everyone can choose a gate to suit themselves. Black was the strongest. Platinum was next. Then came gold. The second to last was green, and the weakest was blue. It is impossible to foresee all the nuances that may arise during a battle. There is always a chance of an unforeseen event. With a smile on her face, Poppy offered to take charge of the upcoming raid. The young man did not expect this at all, because he had never led raids before, and this really stressed the guy out. One of the men was unhappy that Poppy's team had not been consulted about who should be appointed as the leader. Anthony, that was the man's name, began to say that he would soon receive a green mark and that he should lead this raid. Poppy, feeling awkward, smiled and asked if anyone would mind the change. Everyone started saying that they agreed, and Paul wasn't against it at all. Kurt began to complain that experience is important, the judging criteria should be revised, but Paul smiled and said that he was not at all against it. On the day of the raid, the weather was excellent. The sun was shining brightly. The SH company fenced off the area where the gates were supposed to open. When Paul was checking to see if he had prepared everything, Anthony approached him. The man extended his hand for a handshake. Anthony decided to ask if the young man was upset that he had taken the place of the leader, to which Paul refused, which made it even easier for him. After shaking hands, Anthony was happy to cooperate with the young raiders. When the man approached the young man, Kurt, he became interested in what his friend, who he said was an idiot, had told him. When the preparations were complete, the raiders were lined up and ready for battle. The secretary reported that presumably Jargs and Kargs would emerge from the gates, The level was not high, but there were a lot of them, so the raiders had to try not to avoid the buildings. The guys were ready, so they stood in the required formation. Each of them had their own weapon. The gate was supposed to open in 10 seconds, and there were devices glowing purple in that place. Paul was a little nervous, but didn't show it. Gradually, the air began to break, and red lightning began to seep through the crack. Soon the gate opened completely. It was a black and red substance. The raiders prepared to meet whoever came out of the gate first. The first to break out of the portal were the Jargs. An army of dogs rushed towards the raiders. The monsters were ready to tear people into small pieces. The raiders began to destroy the monsters, not allowing them to go further. One of the monsters decided to attack Paul from behind, but the young man quickly noticed the monster. Turning 90 degrees and using the aura that engulfed the young man's entire body, he cut down the monster. After the monster died, Paul wiped the blood from his face. One by one, the monsters died at the hands of people who call themselves raiders. Anthony cut down the monsters one by one, thereby reducing their numbers. The man noticed that Paul had stronger skills than Anthony himself. After all the Jorgs were destroyed, the gates began to open again. The secretary ordered all members of the raid to prepare for a second attack. The second stream of monsters were the hags. Their system number was 9. The raiders took up their previous positions and were ready to repel new attacks from the monsters. Paul noticed that something was wrong, so he turned around to find out, but noticed that the people behind him didn't understand either. The secretary reported that the gates suddenly began to increase in size, something that rarely happened. While repelling the attack of the hag, Paul demanded reinforcements, because who knows what could appear from the portal. Anthony didn't like that some brat decided to interfere with his raid. The man asked the young man not to be so hot-tempered. Paul was outraged by the elder's behavior. It was stupid of Anthony to say that either more Jorgs or Kargs would come out of the portal. Nothing else could come out. The secretary reported that the request for reinforcements had been completed, and asked to remain cool no matter what monster appeared. Anthony looked at the portal. He was impatiently waiting for the one who would appear from the portal. He wanted to show everyone that any creature could win. A huge dragon began to emerge from the portal towards the man, and Anthony fell into a stupor upon seeing it. It was a monster pest. System number 43, Drake. A huge fire-breathing dragon. Only raiders with a gold mark and above can, after long training, fight such a monster. Turning around, Paul was in shock. He didn't come to life. What he saw turned out to be true. All the people in suits got into their cars and left the battlefield like rats, leaving the raiders to certain death. Anthony dropped his weapon. All he could say was that he needed to run. Realizing that the situation was dire, Paul took command and gave the order to raise swords. Everyone was scared, but they listened carefully to the guy's words about how they had to hold out until reinforcements arrived. Otherwise, ordinary people would die. A fireball began to form in the dragon's mouth, with which he was going to kill his victims. The flames suddenly went out, and blood began to flow from the dragon's mouth and nose. Soon the dragon fell down dead, blood spraying from its mouth in all directions. All the raiders were surprised. They did not understand why the dragon died. Someone on the dragon's back began to grumble that the dragon had stopped in the middle of the road, preventing him from passing. There was a guy standing on the monster's back, with the sun's rays illuminating his back. This unfamiliar young man was Sam. His hair had grown noticeably. His physique had also become stronger. Paul stood there and was very surprised. At this time, Sam came down from the dragon and asked what year it was at the moment. When our hero heard the current year, he was very surprised. The guy thought that he had lost his youth, which includes the golden years. Paul didn't know how to react. He thought the stranger was very, very strange. Having recovered from the shock, the young guy thanked Sam for his help. He was amazed by his incredible skills and tried to figure out where our hero suddenly appeared from. When the government people arrived, they took fingerprints, but they were not in the raiders' database. The men started asking where the guy was from and whether he was from Japan by any chance, because they had heard strange words. If the raider was from another country, it was necessary to contact the department in person to establish Sam's identity. Only now, no one could go with him. These words from the men surprised our hero. Pointing to Polo, Sam declared that he would go with him, a statement that stunned the young raider. Our hero hastened to explain his choice. Paul had a strong spirit. The guy did not understand what kind of strength of spirit the stranger was talking about. Clenching his fist, Sam enthusiastically quoted the young man's words about the soldiers having to hold out until reinforcements arrived. The strange guy's behavior made Paul's cheeks blush. Paul rubbed his neck in embarrassment, and behind him Anthony and his comrade felt simply disgusting because of their behavior. A red car was driving along the city roads. Sam asked if it was Paul's car, and he shared that he bought it in installments, which was too expensive for a raider with a blue mark. Our hero shared his opinion that he didn't think that Paul was one of those who lived beyond his means. When the conversation turned to Paul's girlfriend, the atmosphere in the car became more lively. Sam began asking about her, and the young man replied that he wanted his girlfriend to be proud of him. Paul was slightly tense when Sam said that he considered him a real romantic. The young man blushed and said that he would not say anything more. The guy did not want to feel awkward anymore. Soon the boys arrived at the building housing the Raiders Academy. In the interrogation room, Sam sat across from two men in black suits who were conducting the interrogation. Paul was on the other side of the interrogation room when a man wearing glasses approached him. Richard said that Sam was most likely telling the truth about him coming from another world. A statement that surprised the young man. Paul was even more surprised when he heard that Sam was in the space outside the gate. When the men in suits addressed the guy by name, he said that he hadn't heard his name for a long time. One of the men reported that they checked the young man's fingerprints and found out that the guy had been dead for a long time. Sam was then handed a note stating that he had died in the line of duty in an accident during the operation. Our hero wondered how to explain this to him and where to start. While watching the interrogation, Paul heard Sam start to talk about secret information that there was a special unit, a squad of immortals, not far from the demilitarized zone. The man in glasses asked the young man if he had heard that what Sam was saying was classified information, hinting that this conversation should not leak anywhere. Paul had heard something like this before. Among the awakened, there were those who had excellent skills, but from the people who did not pass the exam, a squad was formed. The rest of the conversation remained within the walls of the interrogation room. However, every time this strange man opened his mouth, the faces of those sitting opposite him became very frightened. The guy was soon released, and the man from the department confirmed that everything that was promised to Sam was true. When Richard informed him that the decision on our hero's account should wait, so the guy could live with the raider Paul, Sam was very happy about it. Paul was surprised by the man's decision. He did not understand why him. Then Richard explained that the young man himself offered to help Sam. When Paul decided to refuse, Sam made a sad face and began to play on his pity, saying that the guy would really abandon him to his fate, since he didn't even have a place to sleep. With tears in his eyes, our hero continued to press the young man, saying that he would really refuse to give shelter to a hero who almost died while carrying out matters of state importance, but returned alive. Feeling guilty, Paul raised his hand to stop our hero's flow of words and agreed to help him. Richard patted the young man on the shoulder, saying that he was a great guy. Soon the guys arrived at Paul's apartment. The young man's apartment was two-story. Sam's voice came from behind the bathroom door asking for things. When the guy was looking for things, he came across a pair of leopard panties, and Paul was slightly surprised by this find. Soon the guy found all the necessary things and brought them to the bathroom. When Sam saw the panties, he was surprised and came to the conclusion that Paul liked them, and he replied that it was a gift. Our hero came to the conclusion that since the panties were given to him, it meant that they were a gift from his ex-girlfriend. This statement from the guest slightly angered the young man. Soon, Sam came out of the bathroom with a towel over his shoulders, feeling better after he washed himself. Looking at the owner of the apartment, our hero smiled and thanked him. Paul was surprised to see the guest and said that Sam was now a man. While Sam was drying his hair with a towel, Paul decided to ask again if he really came from the gate, to which our hero hardened. The young man listened attentively to his guest, who said that he did not want to remember the hell he had been through. Paul asked if Sam needed to call his relatives. He could give him his phone number for this. Remembering his parents, the guy smiled softly, of course. He had to call them and tell them that he was alive. But when Paul handed over the phone, our hero refused, saying he would call later. Soon, the young man stood up and said that it was time for them to go. Sam was surprised. He didn't seem to be planning to go anywhere. Paul smiled and said that Sam needed to buy clothes, but first go to the hairdresser. Our hero understood how all this looked from the outside and asked Paul for forgiveness for causing him difficulties, to which the young man replied that everything was fine because Sam had destroyed the monster, and this was such a bonus from him. Putting his arm around the young man's neck, our hero asked him to buy him clothes and shoes, and for dinner he would like Korean beef. In exchange, he would teach Paul martial arts. Soon the boys arrived at the barber shop and Sam was seated in a chair. The specialist asked why our hero had grown his hair. She thought he was a rock star. Sam smiled and said that it was a great idea if he couldn't become a raider. The girl looked at Paul and assumed that he and Sam were quite close, perhaps even work colleagues. Soon, the specialist began to ask about the work of raiders, whether Sam is afraid to meet monsters. Our hero answered that he is afraid because he is also a person, but raiders must learn to be friends with fears. When the girl asked how long to cut her hair, Our hero told her to do it at her own discretion. He trusted her completely. After a while, the hairstyle was ready. Sam's hair was cut short so that it wouldn't get in the way. When Sam approached the cash register, the girl gave him a business card and, smiling, said that he could call the number on it. With a smile on his face, our hero asked Paul to pay, and the guy began to approach the cash register. While the young man was paying and was surprised by the amount, Sam decided to quickly leave with a sly expression on his face. When Paul came out, he immediately asked why Sam bought a season ticket, to which he only mentioned the dragon, and the young man could not say anything else. Looking at his older friend with slight irritation, Paul said that he could do whatever he wanted. In the clothing store, Sam's choice horrified the young raider and the shop's customers. Paul asked if the guy really wanted to buy what he was wearing. The jacket Sam chose had a golden dragon on the back. Under the jacket was a checkered shirt, and underneath our hero chose camouflage pants. Sam chose glasses as his accessories. His overall look looked ridiculous and added a few extra years to him. Paul asked to choose something else. Sam did not understand the younger man's reaction. The young man clenched his fist and was very angry. He explained that Sam looked ridiculous. Sam left the store in a classic look white top and black bottom, but he only bought the jacket from the chosen look. Paul began to scold the young man, telling him not to go shopping alone in the future. When the raider offered to have a snack, our hero asked to go to another place. Placing his weapon on his shoulder, the boy explained that it needed repairing. Paul had little faith that the sword could be repaired, so he suggested buying a new one, to which Sam replied that he did not understand anything about weapons, calling it a chick. The young raider's car sped along the city roads to the place where Sam had found it. A few minutes later, our hero came out at the right building. The two men behind the counter bowed their heads in greeting to the visitors at the Gosan Service Center. After greeting them, Sam explained that he wanted to fix the weapon, and the consultants immediately began to inquire about the weapon. Without thinking, our hero placed his sword on the counter. The male consultants were shocked by the condition of the weapon, and it was simply terrible. One of the men looked at our hero. The KCL-2 sword model has not been produced for a long time. While the guys were talking about whether Paul could afford to pay for the repairs, the consultant continued to talk about how the sword had been in many battles, although its owner was just a kid. The man said that the sword would not be easy to fix, so he offered to buy a new weapon. But Sam refused. He wanted to fix his sword. Taking the sword in his hand, the guy explained that for him it was not just a weapon, it was his comrade in arms. Our hero regretted that he had failed to properly care for the weapon, but he intended to continue using it. The male consultant thought about the guy's words about the weapon and the comrade in arms. The man realized that our hero was old school, so he promised to fix his sword. The consultant said to come back for the weapon in a week, but the payment would be higher, taking out his wallet. Paul did not understand what kind of atmosphere was between Sam and the consultant. Already sitting in the car, Sam shared that it was strange without the sword. It was always with him. Paul said that it was obvious, because our hero had been with the sword for 3 years and had not let it out of his hands. Sam exhaled heavily. Our hero remembered that he always kept his weapon at the ready behind the gates. The guy looked sad, even while sleeping, and never let go of his friend. Soon the guys arrived at the restaurant to have dinner. Paul asked if everything was okay, because there was no beef on the table, which Sam wanted so much. To which our hero replied that he didn't want beef. He had eaten his fill of it outside the gates. The young raider would have been surprised that there were cows in the other world too. Hearing a female voice, Sam looked towards the source of the sound. A young girl approached the table and started a conversation with Paul. Alice looked at Sam and introduced herself. She was Paul's girlfriend. The girl shared that her boyfriend told a lot about our hero. The guy wanted to apologize for disturbing them, but the girl immediately began to justify herself by saying that she just dropped in because she had no business being there at the restaurant. Having looked at the appearance of his passion, Paul began to worry whether she was dressed too lightly. Sam was touched by his younger friend's behavior. Paul insisted that Alice wear his coat. The girl called him a sissy, but was still glad of the guy's care. Morning came. The clock showed 6 hours 50 minutes. Our hero woke up and sat up, his hair slightly disheveled from sleep. The young raider was still sleeping soundly at such an early hour. Going up to the second floor, Sam saw a computer. Sitting down at the gadget, he decided to go online. Because he hadn't been there for a long time, he suddenly became interested in whether he still had access to it. Having found the browser icon, the guy clicked on it and quickly found the desired site. The network of transcendence joyfully greeted the guy, calling him a deserter, and gave the young man 100 points for his return. Tears streamed down our hero's face from relief that he was able to enter. Without thinking, the guy immediately decided to write a post about his return so that his friends could read it. Sam described going through a dark tunnel and ending up in a black hole, awakening the deathly silence, wandering there alone. Death awaiting him every night. If it weren't for the warm memories of his online friends, he wouldn't have survived everything that happened to him. Paul began to wake up from the sound of fingers clicking on the keyboard. Sitting on the blood and looking to the side, the young man was frightened to see Sam crying and muttering something. Paul didn't understand what was wrong with the guy. He was already starting to think that the gate had affected Sam's psyche. The basic technique of the Samji sword, the first is a transverse strike. It was a strike to the side. The second was a blow from top to bottom, the foundation of foundations symbolizing heaven, earth, and man. The third was a thrust, which was performed with a lunge. The network offered to practice this technique, but Sam was already so used to the sword that he did not need it. Still, he decided to accept the back in order to earn network currency. When Paul approached the elder, he demanded to bring it to him, but the boy was going to train with his help. When our hero noticed that Paul had woken up, he asked him to give him the raider's knife for a while. The young guy hugged Sam and said that he would not give him the knife. Began to find out what he wanted to do. Our hero did not understand his reaction. While changing, Sam asked the young man if he had any raids today. He, sitting on the phone, answered that no, but he still had things to do at work, so he asked what his neighbor wanted from him. When Sam reminded him that he had run around training him so that the boy would get a green mark, Paul turned his gaze from the gadget screen to his neighbor. Having realized the whole situation, the raider happily jumped off and began to thank his senior comrade. It was already 7:15 when the boys went to Paul's work to train there. Soon the guys quickly reached the building of the SH company where the raider worked. The guys went down to the underground training room. When Sam asked how Paul uses the aura, he replied that he uses it the way he was taught in the courses. Realizing that this method of use was not very good, Sam handed the book to the young man, who in turn did not understand what it was. Sam explained that he got it from the man who saved his life. Taking the weapon, our hero asked not to tell anyone about the book. Sam was glad that Paul was so trusting. He planned to later demand several times more from the guy for help. Paul's aura value was 20,172. The method of using the aura cannot be changed just like that. It takes time for the existing power to adapt to the new method. If it does not work, it can cause serious damage. Our hero suggested starting with something simple, and at the same time testing what Paul was capable of. Paul decided to ask if it was dangerous. He didn't want to get injured. Sam assured him that he would be careful with him, because even if the young man hit him with all his might, he would not be harmed. The raider thought about the fact that his older comrade had single-handedly defeated Drake, so he had at least a gold mark. While the young man was thinking, Sam yawned due to the early rise. Paul went to put on his protection when he asked if he would put it on. Sam, he assured her, didn't need her. Our hero released an aura and pointed the tip of his sword at the younger one. Paul also didn't hesitate and showed his aura, taking the spear more firmly. The raider decided to attack first. Sam easily dodged the younger man's obvious attack. Their fight was quite fast, because when they moved to a new position, their shadows still remained in the old one. The raider didn't like that his older comrade was always just evading. Looking ahead, Paul noticed that Sam was not in front of him. There was fear mixed with surprise in the boy's eyes when the elder presented the sword to the young man's neck from behind. When the training was over, Paul praised his older friend, saying that he was good. Sam asked if he had doubted it. When the younger one answered that it was just a little, he received a kick in the stomach for it. Standing opposite each other, our hero pointed out where the younger one made mistakes. Paul was surprised that he was not using his aura correctly. Raising her hand, a spark of aura appeared in it. Sam began to explain that the aura and the will are one whole. Movement and will are integrated with the aura. Our hero continued to talk about how if Paul was able to control the aura, then the problem was not in the size. Sam asked to attack him again, thinking that he wanted to kill him, because the fastest emotion is the thirst for murder. Paul rushed to fulfill the request. The younger's attacks became faster, but none of them were able to injure Sam. Our hero easily repelled the attacks of the younger one. Soon Paul fell to the floor trying to catch his breath. When Sam asked the boy to get up, he asked for some rest. Sam began to shame the guy for his words. Instead of answering, the raider hugged his trembling hand upward. Our hero took the young man by the hand when he asked how the elder one stays in shape and doesn't even break a sweat. With the help of the elder's hand, Paul rose to a sitting position. When the young man practically got to his feet, the door to the training room opened, and a girl and a guy in suits walked in. They were Paul's co-workers. The girl was very angry. The guy behind her whispered to the guy to run faster. The guy became interested in what his colleagues were doing in the company since they had a day off. The man who came with the girl felt awkward when the young lady started screaming. The girl started asking in a raised voice whether the guy was still dating Alice. Paul didn't understand what was wrong with his relationship again. A colleague showed a photo of Alice with two guys. Taking the phone, the guy began to carefully examine the photo, while the girl explained that these raiders had a green mark. When the lady heard that Paul sincerely did not understand what was going on, she staggered, and her soul temporarily left her body. While his colleague was beating Paul, the guy decided to meet Sam. The stranger said that he had heard a lot about Sam from Paul. When the guys shook hands, Will introduced himself. He was a blue-marked raider in the SH company. Will also introduced Betty. She herself was a little busy. And the guy also said that they were on the same team with Paul. Will sheepishly invited the guy to lunch. Their director really wanted to meet the young man. Betty turned around at the call and asked what coffee shop they were going to. Paul mentally asked them to wait for him, because the young man was practically out of strength. Fred handed over his company's business card. During lunch, the director began asking our hero about what was behind the gates. Betty picked up the conversation and began asking questions that interested her. A ray of light fell on our protagonist as he began his story. Sam started by describing how every day was like hell. He had to fight monsters he had never heard of before. Fred listened to the young man with interest, drinking at the same time. When the guy was being refilled with a drink and asked if he was a member of any organization, Sam said he was in the ground forces. Fred offered our hero to work with his company. Sam agreed, promising to try for the good of the company. Everyone was happy with the new team member. Betty suggested holding a dedication, since there was a new member on the team, while Paul was calling the director. Standing up, Sam made a toast to the fact that even though they were all born at different times, if they die, they will die together. The boys smiled while listening to the toast. Afterwards, they all clinked glasses of drinks. The next day, Sam came to the Raiders Academy early in the morning. One of the men, Charlie, was recording the boys' words on a laptop. The man in the beret, David, asked follow-up questions to get more information. David didn't beat around the bush and asked directly how the guy got through the gate. Sam says he doesn't know. He heard something about experiments they want to conduct on him. The guy continued to talk about how he felt like he failed. And then he opened his eyes in another world. Sam decided that it was necessary to hide the information about what happened to the elder. The guy noticed that judging by the men's reactions, they knew about the gates to hell. Sam asked what happened to his comrades from the army, to which he received the answer that half of them died. Charlie asked our hero to tell us about his life outside the gates. Sam began the story by saying that every day he fought and killed, and then ate. The guy didn't give up or despair. He held on in order to return home. When he was fighting Drake, suddenly the gates opened and he finally managed to somehow miraculously return back alive. There were mixed emotions of fear and surprise on the men's faces. The guy was released despite the fact that some more data needed to be checked as soon as they collected the information. They would contact the young man. The men also asked him to remember information about unknown monsters. Charlie reminded that our hero signed a contract and should not tell anyone about what happened. Hearing this, the guy got scared because he had already told several people. The man asked to be more careful next time. Otherwise, he would end up in court. David promised that as soon as the guy's documents were restored, the army would demobilize him. In theory, he should have been awarded an order or medal, but they haven't been able to do that yet. In return, the guy would be given a raider certificate without any additional testing. It was a blue mark. Sam had only one question: why was that mission organized? David replied that it was a secret. It was dusk outside when Sam left the Raider Academy. Putting his hand on his heart, the guy could not forget David's words that this mission was a secret. Everyone can have secrets. Having taken out his phone, our hero immediately wrote to Paul and asked him to save his number. Sam stared at the phone screen for a long time. Having dialed the number, the guy did not dare to press the call button. The young man remembered his parents, who wanted him to become a worthy raider. Sam didn't know how he would explain all this to his parents, since they probably thought he had died on the battlefield. To distract himself, the guy went into the store and came out with a bag of groceries. Hearing a familiar voice, the young man looked forward to the source. Paul was sitting on the bench, talking on the phone. When the conversation turned to Sam, the guy's face changed slightly. The young man considered him monstrously strong. When Alice asked about the mark, Paul said he didn't know. Maybe Sam was even stronger than the company director. Having finished the conversation, the young man looked at the phone screen. There was an energy of loneliness all around. Coming closer, Sam handed him a can of drink, and Paul immediately paid attention to him. Our hero sat down next to him and asked why Paul decided to become a raider. Having opened the can, the guy took a sip and replied that he had decided to become a raider, so that he would have something to live on, and then asked a counter question. Looking at the stars, Sam told about his father's instructions to live up to his name. The next question from our hero was about love for a girl, to which he received a positive answer. Sam wondered if he would love her even if he found out she was dating someone else behind his back. Paul himself knew perfectly well that Alice was dating him only because he was a raider. The young man said that she had a hard life and had dreamed of this since childhood. Sam stood up and said that starting tomorrow there would be special training. With a smile, our hero said that the marks meant nothing to him and simply asked to trust and follow him. The next day the guys came to the SH Company, a tinting shop in the basement. Having activated his quirk, the boy placed his hand on his younger comrade's back. It is perfectly normal for the total volume of the aura to be sufficient, but the efficiency to be too low, and the circulation to be not quite smooth. Sam asked Paul not to be afraid and to trust. The aura became slightly darker with a purple tint. Paul immediately realized that this was a darkening technique. The most important thing is harmony and balance, clarity and clouding. All this is part of the world, Sam smiled. Because if you control only one type of aura, then you soon risk losing balance. As he left, our hero told Paul to continue training, but it was time for the guy to work. Sam soon found himself in the principal's office. Fred was reading the newspaper. The director asked if the boy knew how to become a raider, to which the young man replied that he had graduated from a special school for raiders, where he had been an excellent student. When the director asked again, the young man made a rocker gesture confirming his words. Fred showed the supposed location of the gate on the map. It was the city library in the A area. Alleged monsters monster pest, system number 75, Malik. They look like monkeys, but have scales instead of fur, have enough strength to instantly rip off a person's arm, are very agile, and can easily break through a siege and escape. Reading the information, the guy was pleased with the building. The director added that compared to the level of difficulty, the reward is quite low, so many refuse. The guy replied that if it was about saving the residents, which might not be liked, the others had the wrong attitude. The director did not understand whether it was sincere or not. Sam soon arrived by taxi to the gate-opening site, where the organizers and participants of the raid had already gathered. Approaching the crowd, our hero said hello. The guy introduced himself. He was a representative from the Monster Cleansing Department, a monster killer and creator of magic crystals. Of course, the guy embellished a little. One of the girls asked the organizers who the guy who arrived was. The organizer himself did not know, but the application said that another raider would arrive. Rachel thought Sam was quite strange. Richard gave a briefing before the mission, telling about the characteristics of monkeys. Looking to the side, the girl noticed that her neighbor was sleeping standing up. There were 30 minutes left before the gates opened, so everyone was asked to get ready. While rubbing the sword, the girl thought about how, as soon as the gates opened, they would use sword strikes to try to prevent the monsters from jumping out of the cordoned area. The girl's thoughts were interrupted by a yawning Sam. Turning to her senior comrade, she asked why he wasn't wearing protective gear. I was shocked to hear that he didn't have any protective gear. With a smile, Sam explained that the equipment was only getting in his way, and the girl realized that our hero was some kind of loser. Rachel scolded the guy for working as a raider without protection and asked him to refuse the operation. The guy said with a smile that he would try, and if he felt danger he would leave immediately. The girl sighed heavily at such a statement. Leaning over, the guy asked her not to exhale, because in this way she would lose all her luck. Rachel was already feeling irritated, so she decided not to touch the guy anymore. Let him do what he wants. There were 10 seconds left before the gate opened, so the raiders formed a coalition. With every second, the opening of the gates is getting closer and closer. To avoid standing in silence, Sam sang a song. Rachel made a comment the singing was making it difficult for them all to concentrate. The air began to split. The gates began to open. Something light began to appear in the center of the red clot. The Malaks burst out of the portal. The monsters were very angry. The raiders prepared to meet the monsters. One by one, the boys destroyed the monkeys. One of the Malaks managed to break through Rachel's defense. The girl reported with horror that the monster had jumped out of the resistance. The monster attacked the car where the organizers were hiding. Sam easily dealt with the monster, not letting it get close to the people. Parts of the monster's body flew into the car doors, and only the color of light remained from the guy's aura. Sam gathered the aura in the sword. If he doesn't kill, they will kill him. Without thinking, the guy rushed into the crowd of monkey monsters, cutting them into pieces. Our hero has finally made friends with horror, and something new has extended a helping hand to him. The indifference of a butcher when he has to kill those who want to live. Everyone was surprised by Sam's speed. Rachel began to doubt our hero's blue mark. A few minutes later, all the monsters were defeated. While all the guys stood there surprised, Sam calmly walked towards the organizers. Rachel approached our hero as he was shaking the dust off his jacket. The girl was angry when Sam said that he doesn't give autographs. He mistook her for his fan. The young lady started talking about how the guy should stick to the rules. Our hero thought that the girl started talking about protective equipment again. Rachel pointed to her blue badge and explained that there was no need to pretend to be new and make everyone else look like idiots. The guy said that he didn't do it, and that he really did have a blue mark, and that he went on a raid for the first time today. To confirm his words, our hero showed his raider ID. Surprised, Rachel began to apologize and justify her behavior by saying that the guy's skills were not like the blue mark. Smiling, the guy started talking again about how she was his fan and now wanted to know her name. People in suits arrived at the site to remove the monster's pipes. Richard approached our hero and said that he had done absolutely amazingly today. The man saw Sam behind him expecting the monsters to start running away. It was a wise decision. The guy didn't even want to imagine what it would have been like. His face became sad when he spoke about how civilians would have suffered. Richard confirmed that the raid was a failure. There were few people willing to go on such raids, and Sam understood this very well. As the men shook hands to say goodbye, Sam then asked for a taxi. When Sam returned to the company, the director immediately praised him. The guy admired himself and offered his autographs. Frank continued to say that the head of the association's support department really knocked our hero down. The director raised his finger up, continuing to convey the words of his boss. Clenching his fist, the guy said admiringly that he does everything sincerely. Sam asked him to call him if there was any work. He really wanted to ensure the safety of the residents. Then the director offered to go on another call. Without thinking, the guy snatched the information sheet from Frank's hands. When the director asked about Paul's training, Sam told him to train on his own for a while. The young man quickly left the company building. Joyfully, Sam began to look around, looking for a taxi. Our hero remembered Rachel's words about the mark. I stopped and started thinking about what to do with this. Maybe go buy a badge. While the young man stood there pondering his next steps, he was noticed by a schoolboy who was going to training. The boy was delighted when he saw a real raider. Noticing the child, a frightening grimace froze on our hero's face. The young man brought it and turned to the child, who began to be indignant that he was no longer a child. He was already 10 years old. Sam said he thought of the kid because of the blue belt, since he already had a black belt at his age. Our hero asked to sell him the belt. The boy refused. He did not understand why he had to sell it. When the young man showed the money, the child immediately agreed to the sale. The belt smelled a little of sweat, but there was nothing that could be done about that now. Having tied a belt on his forehead instead of a bandage, our hero went on a raid. After a few weeks, rumors soon began to circulate about a guy who went on raids that others didn't want to go on. Sam sat in the lotus position, training his aura. He sat on Paul's back, thereby training his endurance. The young man was already holding on with all his might, sweat streaming down his face. Paul's strength failed him, and they fell. Sam began to scold the younger one, saying that he couldn't even stand that. However, when our hero sat on his butt, he praised his student, saying that he had become stronger. Paul is serious about getting the green light. Sam liked his younger comrade's fighting spirit. Our hero helped Paul to stand up, and said that if he would take such small targets, the young man agreed to the gold one. Paul realized that even gold would not do to satisfy Sam. Before the guy could even mention the platinum one, our hero became serious and said that they needed a unique mark. Paul was surprised because it was impossible. Only 9 people in the world have this unique mark. It is comparable to a nuclear weapon. Only 5 have the golden mark. They are called the chosen ones. Poe was a little upset because it seemed like an impossible dream. Placing the sword on his shoulder, our hero declared that if the young man followed him, he would find out whether it was a dream or not. The guy looked blankly at his feet. Looking at the younger one, Sam said that the boy still had a lot to learn and suggested that he train. But Paul couldn't anymore. He didn't have the strength. Pointing the tip of his sword at the boy, Sam asked the younger one to get his blows quickly. They needed to go somewhere. Soon Paul's car is heading towards Sam's parents' house. While driving, the burden asked how long our hero had not seen his parents, to which he received the answer that Sam had not seen his parents for 10 years. Paul was surprised that our hero could not see his parents for 10 years. When he had only been outside the gates for 3 years. 10 years have passed since the guy left home and declared that he would become a raider. Within a few weeks, my debt, which had accumulated while Sam was living in confinement at home, was cut in half, and he also began to save a little. Sam now had the courage to appear before his parents when they arrived. Paul asked if they had come to the right address, to which he received a positive answer. A woman came out to meet the guys, and when she saw her son, she was surprised. Looking at his mother, the young man's face showed anxiety, remorse, and apologies for not having arrived earlier. All our hero could say was that he brought gifts for him and his father. Putting his hand on his friend's shoulder, Paul offered to help him support the gifts. After giving the gifts, Sam could not look at his mother, but the woman did not take her eyes off her son. Mother stretched her hands towards our hero's face so that he would finally look at her. With tears and a smile, the woman asked if her son was tired from the journey. Hugging his mother, the boy said that he was not tired. The young man had wanted to hug his parents for so long, and now it happened. He was home. The mother pressed herself closer to her son, not wanting to let him go for even a second, so that he would never leave them for such a long time again.